Welcome back everyone to the continued recap video of ICAR JRF 2024. I am Rounak and I got All India rank 5 in the JRF 2023 Physical Science, and presently I am doing my MSc in Soil Science from ICAR CRRI Cuttack Hub. So without wasting any more time, let's just dive right into it. So let's just jump into the question. So the first question you can see is a easy one. It says the amount of organic matter in a soil with value 0 according to Munsell color system is. So for answering this question, you must know what is the Munsell color system or the Munsell color chart, as you have read in the soil physics in the soil color portion. So you know the Munsell color system consists of three main components. Those are hue, value and chroma. So the hue is the principal color or the principal shade of the color, that is, say, whether it is red or blue or green or purple or yellow. So these are the five principal hues, which means the actual color, the principal shade of the color. Value means the relative lightness or darkness of the color. How light or how dark the color is means how black or how white the color is. And chroma means the purity or the degree of saturation of the color. The purity means, say the hue is green, so how pure that green is, how pure, how saturated that green is, that is the chroma. Okay, so the value of the value ranges from 0 to 10. If you see the Munsell color system wheel or the color chart, you will see that the value ranges from 0 to 10, where 0 means completely black and 10 means completely white. So the degree of lightness increases with the increase in the value 0, 1, 2, 3, and it goes on become more white. So 0 means completely black, full black. So here they have asked value 0. So value 0 of the soil means the soil is completely black in color. And we know the color of organic matter is also black. So a soil with value 0 is black in color and the color of organic matter is black. So it means the soil contains high amount of organic matter. So the answer will be option 1, high. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Here you can see it is a match the following, which is a pretty simple one. It is from analytical chemistry. The analytical chemistry portion should be really strong, both for JRF and also for your MSc in the upcoming days. So here we can see option A is Geldal method. We know Geldal method is the most popular method for determination of nitrogen, total nitrogen content of the soil, nitrogen content of the plant, and available nitrogen of soil. All the nitrogen related matters are dealt by the Geldal method and the Geldal apparatus. So Geldal goes to option 3, determines the total nitrogen content in the soil. Bray, we know Bray's P1 test is used for determination of phosphorus. Bray and Olsen, as you know, Bray is used for acidic soil, whereas Olsen is used for alkaline to near neutral soils, and these two are the most popular extractants used for assessing the available phosphorus content in the soil. Now, ammonium acetate extraction, that will be used for quantifying the exchangeable ammonium and potassium content in the soil. The neutral normal ammonium acetate, as you know, the ammonium ion will go and it will replace the potassium ions from the soil exchange complex. That potassium can be quantified, and also after subsequent treatment with sodium acetate, the sodium ions will go and remove the ammonium ions from the exchange complex. In that way, we can estimate the ammonium ion also. So ammonium acetate extraction can be used for quantification of exchangeable ammonium as well as potassium content in the soil. And finally, flame photometry is used for measuring the potassium content in the soil solution. So it will be A3. We get the answer is option 4. Okay. Moving on, element associated with urea's activity. This is a very known question. As we know, the answer is option 1, nickel. Here you can see molybdenum. Molybdenum is used for, I think you know, nitrogenase enzyme. And iron is also essential for many enzymes. Here the first three options, as you can see, all three are essential nutrients. All three are essential and all three are micronutrients. Nickel, molybdenum and iron, all three are essential micronutrients required for plants. Cobalt is not essential for plants, but it is a beneficial nutrient. Okay, now moving on. So the term organic farming was first coined by, this is also a very well known general agriculture question, as you must know, and the answer is Lord Northbourne. Okay, this thing I would suggest you study some good notes from TNAU or from your own university, and some refer some good books also, because since last year many questions are coming from the organic farming section as they have added it as the new curriculum. So organic farming you should focus more, and you can expect at least 3 to 4 questions in your upcoming JRF exam as well in 2025. So moving on, question number 6 is the comprehensive system of soil classification is based on, it is based on measurable soil properties. The previous classification systems, the old classification systems were the also known as the genetic system of soil classification, as you know, and those were measured by intrinsic properties of the soil. But nowadays the scientific soil taxonomic classification, the comprehensive system, it is measured by measurable soil properties, how the soil is at a particular location. From this section, in the pedology section, lots of questions are very important, and you should carefully read ISSS as well as JL Segal for acing this section. From here, other probable questions might be, what do you mean by zonal soil, azonal soil, intrazonal soil, and also what is endodynamomorphic soil, ectodynamomorphic soil, what are the role of climate, vegetation, what is the role of parent material, and all these things. So you must read carefully about the pedology, and that is the thing that will decide your rank. Moving on, this is another very easy question from soil and water conservation. Here you can see following are the 4 stages of gully development. Arrange them in order. It's a very easy one. So as you know, common sense says the first is formation stage. Of course, the gully will form first. So it is D. After formation, it will get developed, further developed. So here will come B. And after that, the gully will get healed. There will be a healing stage when the erosion will be almost stopped and the gully starts to heal. And finally, after healing, there will be stabilization stage where the gully gets stabilized, further erosion is completely stopped, and the gully is stabilized. So here the answer will be option 2. As you can see here, first choice D is only in one option, so you can mark it very easily. There is no case of confusion, but I would always suggest you must read all the 4 options, all the 4, and I will tell you it in the later stage. I will show you example how you can miss something if you don't read all the options. Moving on, here is a assertion reasoning question, and I think you must know by now that assertion reasoning questions are really important. Gone are the days of straight questions, and nowadays ranks are decided by only these kind of questions, because straight questions can be answered by anyone, whoever has read it can answer it. But here you have to analyze, you have to use your critical thinking, and this is the section which will decide your rank. So let's dive into it. The assertion says gypsum is commonly used for the reclamation of sodic soil. This is completely correct. We know the formula of gypsum is CaSO4 dot 2H2O. That is calcium sulfate dihydrate. So it is used for reclamation of sodic soil. We know this is the chemical measure. This is a soluble source of calcium, which is one of the major important methods of reclamation of sodic soil. And the reason says reclamation process involves reduction in exchangeable sodium with calcium and its removal from soil solution through leaching. This is also completely correct. And this is the reason why gypsum is commonly used for reclamation of sodic soil. So the answer will be option 1. Both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. We know this CaSO4 will react with sodium in the soil exchange complex. Okay, it will not react, sorry, it will exchange, it will replace this sodium, and it itself will come and sit here. This sodium will react with sulfate and form Na2SO4, which is called sodium sulfate. This sodium sulfate is soluble in water, and thereby it will get leached down into the groundwaters. It will get leached down. As a result, the sodium will be removed from the exchange complex of the sodic soil, thereby reclaiming the sodic soil into normal soil. So reclamation process involves reduction in exchangeable sodium with calcium. As I said, the calcium of the gypsum will replace the sodium from the exchange complex and sit in the exchange complex. This replaced sodium will react to its sulfate of this gypsum and will form sodium sulfate, which will be leached down into the groundwater. So both are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Fine. Moving on. The next question is another match the following. This is also very easy one. Here you can see in the list 1 there are rocks, name of the rocks, and in the list 2 this is not mineral, this is wrong. These are not the name of the minerals, these are the name of the rocks. So list 2 is name of rock. In the list 1 it is type of rock, in the list 2 it is name of the rock, particular rock. You can expect some this kind of mistakes, silly mistakes in the question paper. So please don't get afraid or don't get confused by it. You should go for the correct answer as always. Here you can see it is very easy. Igneous rock will definitely go to granite. Granite we know is an acidic igneous rock which is also large grained and also intrusive, means plutonic rock. It is formed inside the earth crust and when magma solidifies into the rock. And what is extrusive? When the rock is outside the crust and when the magma is outside the crust and there it gets solidified, there it gets cooled very quickly and forms um, fine grained rocks like basalt, that is extrusive. But intrusive rocks, one of the best example is granite. Granite is intrusive and granite is large grained. Large grained because it crystallizes very slowly inside the earth crust. Fine. Marine sedimentary rock will be limestone, metamorphic rock will be gneiss, and terrestrial sedimentary rock will be volcanic ash. Volcanic ash, the volcano will get deposited year after year in the terrestrial area and it will form the rock. So our answer will be A2. A2, there is only one option, so option 2 is the correct answer. Moving on, here these questions are also very important because these are the true false type of questions and these are also not straight questions and these also will be a critical point for deciding your rank. So this is a, we were discussing this earlier. There, if you remember, I said hue is a measure of chromatic composition of light. It is absolutely correct. Hue is a measure of chromatic composition of light. It is the primary shade of color. It decides, it explains, it determines the primary shade of the color, the primary wavelength, the primary composition of the light, which is in question. And statement 2 is the Munsell color system is based on 5 principal hues. This is also true. What are the 5 principal hues? Red, green, blue. We know these are the primary colors, RGB. Along with this, there is purple and yellow. So red, green, blue, purple and yellow. These are the 5 principal hues which are used in the Munsell color system. So both the statements are absolutely correct and the answer will be option 1. Moving on, which sugar is present in DNA? This is an extremely easy one. This is a sitter question. No one should miss this. We know the full form of DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. That is DNA. So the name of the sugar is already there in the molecule. That is deoxyribose. So the answer will be deoxyribose, option 3. Okay. Moving on. Which of the following are the example of nitrifying bacteria? This one is a very good example of why you should read all the options in the question. See, here nitrifying bacteria is nitrosomonas. So if you just see the option 1 and mark it and go on, you get a -1 because it's wrong. Now if you read all the options, nitrosomonas is a nitrifying bacteria, nitrobacter is a nitrifying bacteria, nitrospira is also a nitrifying bacteria. And in the option 4, you can see all 3 are mentioned. So it is all of these. The option 4 is the correct answer. So whatever the question is, how much ever confident you are about a question, you should always read all the options before finally marking the question. If possible, you should read twice. All the option and whole part of the question you should read twice and then only you should mark it. Here, what is nitrification? Nitrifying bacteria are the bacteria that helps in the process of nitrification. Okay, nitrification. What is nitrification? We all know nitrification is a two-step process where ammonium is first converted into nitrite and then nitrite is converted into nitrate. This whole process is called nitrification. This first step is governed by nitrosomonas and nitrospira, whereas the second step is governed by nitrobacter. Fine. Here I will give you one interesting fact. This nitrospira, it also performs Comamox. And now what is Comamox? That is a bit difficult concept, but I will tell you that Comamox is a certain type of bacteria show a peculiar type of mechanism called Comamox, which is called complete ammonium oxidation, where this two-step process of nitrification is completed in a single step in a single cell. That is, ammonium is directly converted to nitrite in a single step in a single cell. That is called Comamox. And certain species of this Nitrospira genera has that ability to perform Comamox. So this is an info that might come in handy. So for this question, the answer will be option 4. Nitrosomonas, Nitrobacter and Nitrospira. Okay, very nice. Moving on. The term oligotrophic refers to, this is a very easy question from the environmental science section. As you know, oligo always means less, less, less or low. You must have heard the term oligosaccharide. Oligosaccharide means very few number of saccharides, less number of carbons contain the oligosaccharides. Monosaccharides, disaccharides, where one unit is monosaccharide, 2 units is disaccharide. So less number of units form oligosaccharide. So oligotrophic refers to low nutrients and low productivity. So the answer is option 4. Moving on, here is another assertion reason type of question that is very important. You should know. Free silica occurs in soil as quartz and opal. It is a printing mistake here, as you can see. It will be as. Free silica occurs in soil as quartz and opal. True. Reason is quartz consists of a continuous framework of silica tetrahedra. This is also correct. So both the statements are correct. So 3 and 4 is gone. Now we have to decide whether it is option 1 or option 2. So free silica occurs in soil as quartz and opal. That is true. Quartz consists of a continuous framework of silica tetrahedra. That is also true. But quartz consists of a continuous framework of silica tetrahedra. That cannot be the reason that free silica occurs in soil as quartz and opal. Both the statements are not related in a reason assertion way. If you see, free silica occurs in soil as quartz and opal because quartz consists of a continuous framework of silica tetrahedra. That does not stand. So the answer will be option 2. Option 2. Both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Fine. I hope you have understood the concept. For these questions, you have to be very, very careful. These are very important questions and you should not miss these questions in your exam. Fine. Coming to the next question. Again, another example of why you should read all the options. Organic nutrients in water bodies promote growth of the natural population of aquatic bacteria. True. BOD, that is biological oxygen demand. I think you know, everyone knows what is it. If the organic matter content in the water body is very high, then it increases the biological oxygen demand, which is the oxygen needed by microorganisms or microbes to decompose the organic matter present in the water body. So if the amount of organic matter is high, generally the BOD will be high because the microbes need more oxygen to perform more activities of decomposition. And eutrophication, you know, flow of nutrients into the pond, which leads to into the water bodies, which leads to incidents like algal bloom. Excessive flow of nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen into the water body is called eutrophication. So here this is also correct, this is also correct, this is also correct, and you can see in option 4 all the 3 options are listed. So the correct option will be option 4. You have to be very careful and read all the options, and then only you can get full marks in this question. It will be option 4. Alright. Very nice. Let's move on. Question number 16. This is a very easy question from the potassium chapter. If you have read the IEEE or any standard textbook, the different pools of potassium in soils are, we all know there are 4 pools of potassium in the soil, out of which one is soil solution pool, fixed K, exchangeable K, and lattice K, which is in the lattice of primary minerals. That is totally non-exchangeable. Exchangeable K is readily exchangeable and it is in equilibrium with the soil solution K, and fixed K is slowly exchangeable. It is slowly available, whereas soil solution K is very quickly available to the plants. So the answer will be option 3. A, B, C and D. All 4 consist the pools of potassium in soils. Alright. I don't think there is any doubt about this. Let's move on. If there is any doubt, you can always ask in the comments. Moving on to the next question. Again, there is one assertion reasoning question, and given below are the two statements. The effective rainfall erosion index of a given area is linearly proportional to the percentage of ground that is not covered by vegetation. Read again. The effective rainfall erosion index, the power of rainfall to erode the soil of a given area is linearly proportional to the percentage of ground that is not covered by vegetation. This is true. And the reason is the rain erosion index includes both the kinetic energy of rain and the maximum 30-minute rain intensity. This statement is correct, but it is not the explanation of this. It says the mathematical formula, and it says the formula that effective rainfall erosion index is linearly proportional to the percentage of ground that is not covered by vegetation. This is true, but it is in no way related to how the rainfall erosion index, what the rainfall erosion index includes, right? So the answer will be option 2. Both are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Fine. Okay. Very good. Moving on to the next question. Who first observed that legumes can utilize atmospheric nitrogen? This is a very simple question of general agriculture and also of soil biology. So it is from soil science, you can say. And the answer will be J. B. Boussingault. He first observed it, and Beijering was the one who first isolated it. So don't get confused. Beijering isolated the rhizobium from the legumes, whereas Boussingault observed for the first time that legumes can utilize atmospheric nitrogen and they do not need supplementary nitrogenous fertilizers for their good growth. So the option answer will be Boussingault. Fine. Moving on, here is another very simple question of organic chemistry, you can say, or you can say biomolecules. It says match the following. Name of the gas and chemical formula. I think you all know alkane, alkene and alkynes. They have given a list of alkanes and the formula of alkanes is CnH2n plus 2. What is an alkane? You know, the simplest alkane is methane and its structure is this tetrahedral structure where one C is bonded to 4 hydrogen, CH4. That is an alkane, and that is methane. When talking about ethane, we know it is CH3, CH3. That is ethane because there are 2 carbons. So methane will be CH4, ethane will be C2H6 as you can see here, and propane will be C3H8. So propane goes here and butane is 4 carbon, that is C4H10. So the answer is option 2. I'm sorry. So the answer is option 2. A2, B4, C1 and D3. Alright. Moving on. Another assertion reasoning question, and you should be again very careful. First let's read the sentence carefully. Cations adsorbed on soil colloids determine aggregate formation. True. This is a very true statement because the cations determine the zeta potential of the soil colloids, of the individual soil colloids, and it determines the degree of flocculation or the degree of dispersion. You should know that if the zeta potential is high, there is high amount of repulsion between the soil colloidal particles, and if the zeta potential is lower, there is flocculation. So types of cations adsorbed on soil colloids determine the aggregate formation. This we know because we know that sodium and lithium cations like this are good dispersing agents and they disperse the soil colloids, whereas cations like calcium and magnesium, they flocculate the soil colloids. The reason for this is a bit difficult chemistry, but you should know that the main reason for this is hydration, ionic potential, or the hydrated radius, hydration energy. Sodium ions have very high hydrated radius as it contains a big hydration shell, and thereby it increases the zeta potential and results in repulsion of soil colloidal particles, which results in deflocculation or dispersion of the soil, which is the major problem in sodic soil. Fine. The here another governing factor is ionic potential. You should know the term. Ionic potential is nothing but charge by radius. Okay. So if the radius increases, the ionic potential decreases. Okay. So the first statement is correct. The second statement is cations form electropositive links between electronegative soil particles. This is also true. There is a phenomenon called metal bridging. You know, bridge that connects two landmass. This is called metal bridging, or also this term is called co-adsorption. Now let me explain what is this. You all know that soil colloidal particles are negatively charged, right? Soil particles are negatively charged. This charge is developed due to isomorpha substitution or pH dependent charges, that is temporary charges. So soil colloid is negatively charged. Say calcium ion is here. Calcium ion is Ca2 plus. So what happens in co-adsorption is, here is one soil colloidal particle, say hypothetical, and there is another soil colloidal particle. In the middle, calcium sits and it forms the bond with both the colloidal particles at the same time, thereby calling it a metal bridging or co-adsorption. Here what the calcium ion does, it forms a, as you can see here, it forms a electropositive link between electronegative soil particles. This situation will certainly aid for flocculation, right? This will certainly help in flocculation of the soil particles because calcium forms the electropositive link or the bridge between the two negative soil particles and thereby brings them closer and makes them flocculated. Correct? So we get the concept. It's very easy, nothing to worry about. Positively charged calcium ions, they sit in the middle. They have two colloidal particles on their both sides, thereby forming a electropositive bridge between two colloidal particles, bringing them together, therefore resulting in flocculation. So here, let's come back to the question. We have discussed a lot about the concept here. So coming back to the question, here we can see that cations adsorbed on soil colloids determine aggregate formation. True, because cations form electropositive links between electronegative soil particles. This is also true and this is a correct explanation. So the option will be 1. Both A and R correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. Fine. This was a nice question and easy one also. Let's move on to the next one. The parameters of N-use efficiency, this you should know. You must have read the ISSS old edition, 2012 edition. There you can see in the nitrogen chapter, they have given listed all the N-use efficiency and apparent N recovery, agronomic efficiency, production efficiency, and physiological efficiency. All these four are parameters of N-use efficiency. So the correct option will be option 3, A, B, C, and D. All of the above. Fine. You should read the formula of all the efficiency present there, like agronomic efficiency, what is apparent N recovery, what is recovery percentage, what is physiological N efficiency. All these are N use efficiency. Broadly, you should understand the meaning of efficiency is output by input. This is in general terms, in broad. Any efficiency anywhere in the world you see, it means output by input. That means what output you are getting for a certain amount of input. Here N use efficiency mean what output in, say, in terms of grain yield, in terms of biomass yield, whatever output you are getting with the amount of nitrogen that you are applying. Fine, that is called efficiency. So here all four are the parameters of nitrogen use efficiency. Fine, moving on. This is a very easy question again from water erosion, soil and water conservation. You must see this is the second question from soil and water conservation, and both are from water erosion. So you should understand that water erosion is the most important section of the soil erosion, soil conservation, soil and water conservation chapter, and you should read this very thoroughly from ISSS and from other standard textbooks. Okay, so here we know the first is splash, because the raindrops falling from the sky falls on the ground and splashes the soil particles. This is the preliminary. So first will be C. Then we know after splash, the next one comes. What is that? That is sheet erosion. Sheet erosion is skimming off of the topsoil or removal of the topsoil layer as form of muddy water. The topsoil layer gets removed by means of flowing water as muddy water and removes the entire topsoil. So C, then B. Then comes the real erosion, that is small finger-like, small depressing structures in the soil where there is a concentrated flow of water. So sheet erosion gets transformed into real erosion. Sheet erosion is uniform removal of the topsoil, whereas real erosion is some areas of the soil having lower tensile strength. There some depressions are formed, some channels are formed, which can be easily managed by normal tillage operations. Say you plow the soil and these reels will go on, but it forms the reel erosion. So it will be C, B, D, and after reel we know comes the gully. Reels, if unattended or those are not recovered, those are not managed, they will develop into gully. Gully erosion cannot be managed by simple tillage practices. Gully erosion requires costly engineering measures or proper engineering structures for control of gully erosion. Gully erosion cannot be controlled by simple tillage practices. And finally, it will come ravine erosion, or ravine means near the in the river. It will form river-like channels. So our option will be C, B, D, E, A. Where is that option? You should read all the options carefully. 1, no. B is, yeah, true. Option 2 is the correct answer. C, B, D, E, A. So option 2. Nice. Moving on. Arrange the following factors affecting irrigation water quality in agriculture in the correct sequence. What is the correct sequence of this question? If you see, is a bit vague. They have not mentioned the sequence of from high importance to low importance or low importance to high importance. So this is a bit confusing, but don't worry, we will figure it out eventually, not a problem. So for irrigation water, the main important thing is salinity. Here, since they have not mentioned in the order of least importance to highest importance, we will go with the standard order of highest importance to lowest importance. So the highest will be salinity, that is for sure. So option 3 and option 4 are already gone. So either it will be 1 or 2. Salinity is highest. Then comes the sediment content, because you can see in the irrigation water, if it is containing large amount of sediment, that means there is some soil erosion going on, and that is harmful for the soil layer of that area. So it will be A, then C, then D, then B. So the correct answer is option 2. 30021. Yeah, it's option 2. But you can see this question is a bit vague and is not clear actually what they want. But you know, with the basic concept, you can say it is option B is the correct answer. Fine. Moving on, father of modern agriculture, modern organic agriculture. This is also a very simple general agriculture question. You all should know, that is Howard. Father of modern organic agriculture is Howard. All right. Moving on. Here you can see the other names. Lord Northbourne, we have already answered. What did Lord Northbourne do? I think you all remember. He gave the term He was the first to give the term organic farming, right? All right. So we have made a considerable progress. Now, moving on to the next question, another general agriculture question. This is not from soil science. You can say it is from soil science, mineral nutrition part, but mostly it is a general agriculture. You should know this. You have to read this thoroughly. You have to memorize this, and you have to practice the general agriculture books. There is no other way, no other shortcut of doing this. Mottle leaf of citrus is caused by the deficiency of zinc. Zinc will be the correct answer. Option 3. All right. Certified organic logo in India is, this is also a organic question. So I think if you remember, I told you organic agriculture is getting lots of attention in this year's JRF, and there is a huge chance it will get in the next year's JRF as well. So you should thoroughly read organic agriculture. Here the answer is India Organic. You should know this, India Organic. I think you know this. NPOP, they provide this, and the certified organic logo is India Organic. Fine. Option 1 is the correct answer. All right. Moving on. Question number 27. Certification is essential for authenticating organic products. Another question from organic agriculture. This is the fourth question. In this short period of time, we get 4 questions from organic agriculture, right? So I think you can understand the importance. So here certification is essential for authenticating organic products because a third party certification agency monitoring the organic production system. Exactly, in India this is how it is done, and organic products are produced by following NPOP guidelines. So certification is necessary, certification is essential to check whether the organic products are actually produced by following the NPOP guidelines or not. And a third party certification agency monitoring the organic production system is required to see whether the farmers are actually practicing the organic practices or not. Organic farmers are dedicated in cultivation practices. This is not the case, because then we would not be needing any certification, and potentiality of marketing of organic products are increasing. This statement is true, but it is not related to essentiality of certification. So the answer here will be A and B only. Fine. Moving on, OA sub horizon, another classic question from soil science horizon, and this is a pedology question. I have already told you, you should give extra attention to pedology, as pedology is very, very, very vital for your preparation. Here, you know, the answer will be organic horizon with highly decomposed organic matter, option A. You know, you should know there are 3 types of O horizon: OI, OE, and OA. This one is the least decomposed, this one is the medium decomposed, and this one is the highest decomposed. This OI horizon occurs in the topmost layer. Below that, there is OE horizon, and ultimately, there is OA horizon at the last. Fine. So, OA horizon is the most highly decomposed organic matter. OE is the medium range, medium decomposed, and OI is very slightly decomposed organic matter. Fine. Moving on to the next question. This is a very easy and classic question from pedology. As you can see, pedology also gets lots of importance. Here, this is a simple matching with list 1 to list 2, where you have to match the soil order with their characteristics. This is a very easy question. Here, we will start with Altisol. What is Altisol? Altisol comes from ultimate ULT, that is very highly weathered. What we can see here, deep soils with high organic matter, clay rich soils, no base saturation is less than 35, soils that have indicator but may have an umbric epipedon. So, okay, even if you don't remember exactly, we can move on. This is a match the following question, no need to worry. Vertisols, we know these are the black soils. Vertisol comes from Latin invert. Invert means self-churning or inversion of the soil horizon, soil profile. So, vertisol black soil is clay rich soil with swelling shrinkage properties according to soil moisture content. So B is 2, that is confirmed. And fine, what is all are clay rich soils with swelling shrinkage properties? We know swelling shrinkage properties occurs due to smectitic clay minerals like montmorillonite that is present in the vertisol. Fine. Now come to mollisol. Mollisols are deep soils with high organic matter content and more than 50% base saturation. That is also confirmed, because mollisol comes from mollis, Latin, which means soft. These are soft organic soil, soft deep organic soil. So B2C1 is confirmed. You can check if there are any B2C1. Yeah. So this is not one, this is not one, this is not one. So it will be option. So you can go for the rest. That is D is 4 alphisol or soils that have argillic, candic or natric horizon. This won't be nitric, this is natric. And a base saturation of 35% or greater with ocric epipadon but may have an umbric epipadon. Whereas altisols are base saturation less than 35, yeah, with argillic or candic horizon. Base saturation less than 35 means, I told you, altisol comes from alt, means ultimate. That is the ultimate form of weathering. Ultimate weathering has happened in this soil, and it is in the very advanced stage of soil formation. Very high weathering processes have taken place, resulting in very less base saturation, as all the basic cations have washed away due to weathering. Fine. And coming to the last question, question number 30. This is also a important question from soil biology. As you can see, this is also again from the nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen cycle is very, very, very important, and you have to be extremely thorough about all the parts of nitrogen cycle. Here the question is microorganisms that oxidize ammonia to nitrite. I already told you in the previous question, nitrification is a two-step process where ammonium converts to nitrite, converts to nitrate. So here they have asked for the microorganisms that oxidize ammonia to nitrite. So they have asked for this first step. This first step of nitrification they have asked the microorganisms responsible for this. So nitrobacter is no way, because nitrobacter we know they are they are responsible for the second step. And here they have given thiobacillus. Thiobacillus oxidizes sulfur. You should remember thio, thio. Thio means sulfur. Sulfur related is thio. So nitrosomonas and nitrosolobus. A and D only. The answer is option 2. Here I will tell you one trick, or I will tell you something, that is any genera starting with nitroso. This so, nitroso. This so is the characteristic that tells that it governs this first step of nitrification. Whatever genera is starting with nitroso, nitrosomonas, nitrosolobus, everything is responsible for this first step of nitrification, that is they oxidize ammonium to nitrite. Ammonium to nitrite is converted by bacteria having the generic name starting with nitroso. Nitroso should be common. If you see nitroso in the option, then after that it can be anything XYZ. If you see nitroso in the name, then you should be totally sure, totally guaranteed that it is a nitrifying bacteria. It takes part in nitrification, and it takes part in the first step of nitrification, where it forms ammonium to nitrite. Again, another assertion reasoning type of question. And assertion says that liming should not be done along with ammoniacal fertilizer application. Liming, what is liming? Liming is the apply of lime for reclamation of acidic soils to make the soil pH towards neutral. So liming should not be done along with ammoniacal fertilizer application. This is a true statement. Why? See, they have given the reason liming leads to volatilization loss of ammonia. True. This is also correct. So, and this is the correct reason of the assertion. So here the answer will be option 1. Both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Now you might ask why it happens. So nothing to worry about. It's very easy. Ammoniacal fertilizer contains nitrogen in the form of ammonium. Correct? This is ammonium ion. And how does it get converted to ammonia? This is ammonia, NH3 plus H plus, and it is a both way reaction forming NH4 plus. Fine. So we know the Le Chatelier's principle and the shifting of the equilibrium. We know, I think you all know that. So here you can see that H plus is in the left hand, left side of the reaction. So Liming increases the soil pH. That means this H plus gets decreased. As the H plus gets decreased, concentration of H plus gets decreased in the soil solution, the rate of backward reaction will increase. The rate of backward reaction will be more. Thereby, ammonium ion, NH4 plus ion will be very rapidly converted to ammonia, NH3, and this NH3 will get volatilized. Okay, that's why liming should not be done along with ammoniacal fertilizer application, because it will lead to volatilization loss of ammonia, and there will be a huge amount of reactive nitrogen loss, and the nitrogen use efficiency will be less, and you will be wasting your valuable economic resources. Very nice. Okay, moving on to the next question. Question number 32. Which one of the following is not a monosaccharide? This is a very easy question of biomolecules. I think everyone knows this probably. You have read biomolecules. You know biomolecule is one of the most important part of ICAR physical science curriculum. And if you carefully analyze the previous year papers, you can see in 2022, they have given almost 9 to 10 questions from biomolecules, and those were pretty high standard questions. Like, you just cannot answer them from your general knowledge. So I would suggest you should take very good care of your biomolecules portion, and you should read it from standard books. You can refer to NCRT, class 11, 12 NCRT, and also you can refer to some standard notes from your college. So here, which one of the following is not a monosaccharide? This answer will be maltose, because maltose is a disaccharide which consists of two glucose units linked together by glycosidic bonds. Fine. Two glucose plus glucose makes maltose. So maltose is a disaccharide and it is not a monosaccharide. Other three you can see: glucose is a monosaccharide, fructose is a monosaccharide, and rhamnose is also a monosaccharide. It's a type of deoxyribose monosaccharide. Fine. Very nice. Moving on to the next question. Another true false type of question. These questions are very important. You have to carefully read the question multiple times so that you don't get wrong. So here, statement 1 says that application of nitrogenous fertilizer leads to nitrous oxide emission from the soil. Application of nitrogenous fertilizer leads to N2O emission from the soil. This is true. This is absolutely true. This is one of the major pathways of reactive nitrogen loss from the fields after the application of fertilizer. The statement 2 says that nitrous oxide is present in large quantities compared to methane in the atmosphere and therefore possesses higher potent danger. Here you can see a spelling mistake. It should be possess, but that's fine. It is not changing the meaning of the question that much. So nitrous oxide is present in large quantities compared to the methane in the atmosphere and therefore possesses higher potent danger. This is wrong. This portion here, it is wrong, because the concentration of methane in the present atmosphere is almost 1900 ppb, parts per billion. Fine, almost 1900 ppb, whereas the concentration of nitrous oxide in our atmosphere, in our environment, is only around 300 to 350, 370 around ppb, parts per billion. So you can see it is almost 6 times. So methane is present in almost 6 times higher concentration than nitrous oxide in our atmosphere. So nitrous oxide is present in large quantities compared to methane is a wrong statement. So it is false. So the correct answer of this question will be statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Option 3. Fine. Let's move on to the next question. Colchicine treated cells are arrested in. This is a very easy general agriculture question. I think all of you know this, and you might have read it multiple number of times in any book, say Nimrod Sunda, Arun Kattayan, SR Kantoa, any standard general agriculture book will have this question for sure. And colchicine is used for arresting the cell division. As you know, it is called cell division arrestor, and these cells are arrested in metaphase. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Colchicine treated cells are arrested in metaphase. Fine. Moving on. Dichloral urea is used as a. This is a question from agricultural agril chemicals. Chemicals is also a very important part of the curriculum of ICAR JRF Physical Science subject group. So you should be very, very thorough about your agriculture chemicals studies, and I would suggest you study some standard books, say objective agriculture chemical books, or you can study some standard notes from any standard university like TNAU, US Bangalore, or ICRE notes also. So agricultural chemicals you should be very thorough with, and also you should regularly check the websites about which chemicals are getting banned, which chemical is now prevalent in India, which chemical is having the highest market share and everything, trade names. So here these questions you cannot use your concept. These questions are like if you know it then you can answer it. If you don't know it you cannot answer it. It is a know it all type of question. So here you have to remember dichlorolurea is used as a soil herbicide for pre-emergence treatment. Pre-emergence treatment. You have to remember this. Say if your luck is good, you might get the same question in your upcoming JRF examination, and then you don't have to see other options. You can just directly go for this. But you have to be very thorough with your agricultural chemical studies. The answer of this question is soil herbicide for pre-emergence treatment. Pre-emergence means before the main crop has germinated. That condition is called pre-emergence. The main crop has not emerged yet from the soil. At that time, you can use dichlorolurea as a herbicide to kill the weeds. Fine. Moving on. Now, this is a very easy question from classical soil science. The characteristic of saline alkali soil are saline alkali means EC will be greater than 4, and alkali means pH will be greater than 8.5. These are the two conditions. So let's see which is this. And also alkali means mostly sodic because salts of sodium, mostly sodium carbonate, is the reason for the sodicity or the alkalinity of the soil. So we have to see which options match this criteria. EC less than 4, this is out of the question. EC less than 4, again out of the question. Here EC more than 4, EC more than 4, ESP less than 15, ESP more than 15. Okay, so ESP less than 15 is also out of the question. So the answer will be option 1. Everything is greater than the threshold value. Electrical conductivity more than 4. You have to remember the unit, never forget the unit. pH has no unit and ESP is already percentage. So ESP is greater than 15%. Fine. So the answer to this question is option 1. Very nice. From here you have to remember the criteria or the characterization of the other types also. Singly saline soil and only sodic soil. Those also you have to remember, where the EC is more than 4, EC is less than 4, ESP is more than 4, ESP is more than 15 or less than 15, and pH is more than 8.5 or less than 8.5. And also you have to remember the SAR values. You know SAR, what is SAR? Sodium adsorption ratio. What is that? That is Na plus divided by Ca2 plus Mg2 plus by 2. This value you have to remember, and the threshold value for SAR is 13. Alright, you can find this table in any standard book. You can find this in the new ISSS book, in the old ISSS book, anywhere a standard textbook has these characterizations, and you should be really, really thorough about it. Fine. You have to remember the EC value, ESP value, SAR value, and the pH value. Alright, moving on. Stable compound formed during urea hydrolysis. This is a very good question. Here, there is a huge chance of mistake if you don't read the question carefully. You have to read the question carefully at least twice. At least twice. The more the better. Our common notion is that the compound formed during urea hydrolysis, the first compound that is formed during urea hydrolysis is ammonium carbamate. So most of the students, what they will do, they will just read the question formed during urea hydrolysis. They know ammonium carbamate. They will go for ammonium carbamate and go on just fetching them -1. Right? So you have to carefully see the word here, stable. Stable compound formed during urea hydrolysis. Urea hydrolysis, the first compound that is formed is Ammonium carbamate. That is true, but ammonium carbamate is unstable and it very quickly, very rapidly, it gets decomposed. It gets decomposed into ammonia and CO2, right? So the first compound formed during urea hydrolysis is ammonium carbamate, but it is unstable. It is not stable. Here they have asked, how cheekily they have asked you, see, stable compound formed during urea hydrolysis. The answer will be ammonia. Here you can see ammonia. You know the formula of urea, that is NH2CONH2 during hydrolysis. Wait, let me erase this place things. During hydrolysis, they will react with water to form ammonium carbamate. NH4COONH2. This is ammonium carbamate, which is unstable. All right, this is not stable. This thing further goes on to decompose into 2NH3 plus CO2. So the first stable product is ammonia. So the answer will be option 3, ammonia. Right? I think you are pretty sure and pretty confident with this question, and you should always remember to read the question twice or more than twice. Fine. Moving on, here is a question we get from environmental science, the ecology portion. Ecological races are also known as, this is a straight question, very straight question, and you should know this. This is eco type. Here we should focus on the other options also a bit. What is ecotone? Ecotone means the transitional region or the transitional area between two different communities. You can remember it in this way. Tone. This tone comes from tension. Fine, tension. This tension means it is a, you can remember it in this way, tension is a situation of tension between two different communities. There is a what to say, there is an atmosphere of tension between them, so it is a transitional zone between two different communities, that is called ecotone. Okay, ecotype are the ecological races. They are phenotypically different and they are genetically also different. Ecotype is lesser than a species. Say there are two individuals of the same species in an area, and one individual has been moved to another part, and there that individual has stayed and bred for many generations and years. So, and in that next place, in that another place, the environment is totally different. So this environment will induce an adaptation, phenotypic adaptation at first, which will be converted into permanent genotypic change. So after few generations, you will find a permanent genotypic change between the two individuals who once used to belong in the same species. But that change is not that much pronounced that we can say it that it is a different species also. So it is lesser than species. Ecotype is something which is genetically, phenotypically different individual, but it is not that pronounced that it can be designated as a different species. Whereas ecophene or ICARs are, they are genetically similar, but phenotypically they are different. What do you mean by that? Say again, two individuals of same species are staying in a place, and you pick up one individual and send it to some other place which is having extremely different type of environmental conditions. So what that species will do, it will develop some adaptation. These adaptations, these phenotypic changes are called make these adaptations result in some phenotypic changes without any change in gene, without any genotypic change. So it will just be a phenotypic change in the character, and it is called ecophene or ICARs. These both are the same. ICARD and ecophene are the same. So what is the difference between ecophene and ecotype? Ecotype is genotypically, genetically different, and ecophene not genetically different but somewhat different due to environmental induced adaptations. I think you are clear. I would suggest you to read these portions, these ecology portions from standard textbooks. I would say NCERT is a very good choice, and if you don't want NCERT, you can read some standard EVS notes of any university or You can read some books also, say Truman or Catalyst, or if you are in the future, if you want to prepare for UGC NET Environmental Science, then I think you should read these books. However, I believe that NCERT is a very good one for building your base and building your concept. Fine. So we are fine with this. The answer is eco type. All right. Moving on. A personnel who, because of special interest and fitness, is selected to serve as a leader in advancing some phase of local extension program is called. This is a very easy one. It's called project leader, right? Here, I don't think there is a need to explain any concept or anything. Extension, you have to be thorough with your extension. You should read the current affairs and extension portion from any standard general agriculture books, and these questions are very common in almost all the years. If you analyze carefully the previous year questions, in almost all the years you will find at least 2 to 3 questions definitely coming from extension portion. There you have to study the leaders, the extension programs, the yojanas of government, say PMKSY, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, PKVY, everything you have to study, right? Moving on, the process by which neutrons lose their kinetic energy through elastic collision in the soil is known as, I think every one of you know this. This is a classic question from soil physics. If you have read the ISSS, this is nothing for you. The answer is thermalization. The process by which neutrons lose their kinetic energy through elastic collision in the soil is known as thermalization. The neutrons collide with the hydrogen ions of water and lose their speed. This process is called thermalization, and by detecting the number of neutrons that lost their speed, we can detect the moisture content of the soil. And this is a type of in situ moisture content measurement in the soil by neutron moisture meter. You should read these areas very thoroughly. It is very well given in the ISSS book, and you have to be very thorough about your instrumentation portion of soil physics, of especially of soil water. From physics, you can expect at least 3 to 4 very good question, very conceptual question, and you should be really thorough about it. Fine. Moving on. Arrange the following in increasing amount of nitrogen in the fertilizers. This is also a very good question from the soil fertility, the nitrogen chapter. This is nothing. You have to remember the percentages. Even if you don't know all, they have given the question in such a way that if you know one, you can answer it very easily. So here ammonium nitrate, we know ammonium nitrate contains nitrogen both in ammonium form and nitrate form. So we can expect it contains more nitrogen than all the other. So ammonium nitrate contains around 34% of nitrogen, right? Here we get CAN. CAN is very widely used fertilizer that is called Kisan Khad. I think all of you know that. This is also a neutral fertilizer. It does not promote acidity or basicity in the soil after application. And you should know the nitrogen content of this, and that is 25%. Fine, very nice. The remaining are, these two are also very well known fertilizers. You can find it in the new ISSS, in the old ISSS, in any standard book. You can see these 4 fertilizers and their specifications, their nitrogen content and everything. Ammonium chloride contains, it also contains 25%, whereas ammonium sulfate contains 20.5% nitrogen. So increasing amount they have asked. So first it will be A, of course it will be A, that is ammonium sulfate, and last it will be B. So you can check the option, first A, last B. This is option 4. And before B it will be D, calcium ammonium nitrate, and before that it will be C, ammonium chloride. Right? I think clear with this, no problem. So option 4 is the correct answer. All right, moving on. Okay, another question from soil water. Just I was telling you have to be very thorough with your soil water and soil physics portion. So height of the capillary rise of water in soil is, you have to remember the formula. The formula is nothing but Laplace equation. I think you remember. And that height, that formula says height is equal to 2t cos theta divided by rho r g. This h is the height of capillary rise of water in the soil, what they are asking in the question. So once you remember this formula, you just write it down and the question is really easy for you. So the option what A says inversely proportional to the radius of the tube. We can see H is here, R is here, and it is inversely proportional to the radius of the tube. That's correct. Second option says inversely proportional to the density of the water. Here you can see rho is in the denominator. So this is also correct. Inversely proportional to the density of the water. What C says directly proportional to the radius of the tube. No. R is in the denominator and H is here in the numerator. So it is not directly proportional. It is inversely proportional. So C is wrong. So in the option wherever there is C, oh, there is no C in the option. Nice. And option D says inversely proportional to the surface tension of the water. Surface tension, this T is the surface tension of water. Here you know this H is the height of capillary rise, this T is the surface tension of the water, this rho is the density of water, this R is the radius of the tube, and this G is gravitational acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so here we can see this H is in the numerator, this T is in the numerator. So what we call it? We call this relation directly proportional. So this is also wrong. So this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and the correct answer is option 3. Option 3 is the correct answer. Right? Moving on. Model is an example of, this is again a question from extension. I always tell you, you have to be very thorough with your extension. But this is an easy question. You can solve it with your common sense also. Model, you know what is a model. We prepare those models during our away programs, during our assignment submission of extension. So model is nothing but a display type of visual aid. We make, say, a model of IFS, integrated farming system, and we display it in our exhibition center. People come, they see the model, and they get to know what IFS is. So it is a display type of visual aid. This is not the correct answer. The correct answer is option 1. Fine. Very good. Moving on. Here you can see the other options: attractive type of visual aid, design type, presentation type. Presentation type is something, it is a slide. Say presentation is a slide, is a poster. Poster is a presentation type. You have to present it. Even after making the poster, you have to present it. Whereas models are self-explanatory. You don't have to present it. You just make the model and display it. People will come, see it, and they will get to know it for themselves. No need for further explanation or presentation. So it is not a presentation type of visual aid. Fine. It is a display type of visual aid. Moving on, another assertion reasoning question. You have to be again very careful. Let's read the statement. Cover cropping is a common practice in organic farming systems. True. In organic farming, cover cropping is very common. You have to do it because you are not applying any synthetic or chemical fertilizers. So for maintaining the nutrient status, you have to figure out systems like this. So cover cropping is a common practice in organic farming system. True. And the reason is cover crops help to improve soil health, suppress weed, and enhance biodiversity, aligning with the principles of organic culture. Perfect. Cover crops help to improve soil health. That is true. They prevent soil erosion. You must know. Cover crops are erosion resisting crops. They suppress weeds. That is also true. They turn out to be victorious in the crop weed competition because they smother the weeds and the weeds do not get to flourish due to lack of light and competition from the cover crops. They enhance biodiversity, of course, they enhance the biodiversity. Whatever the main crop is, along with that, cover crops are introduced, they enhance the biodiversity, and they perfectly align with the principles of organic agriculture because there is nothing synthetic about it. So, assertion is correct, reason is correct, and reason is the correct explanation of assertion. So, this is a option 1. Right? I think there is no confusion about this. This is a very easy one. Another question from soil fertility and fertilizers. Soil fertilizers also is a very important portion. You should be very thorough about your fertilizers, manures, and biofertilizers because you can expect at least 4 to 5 questions directly coming from this portion. So bone meal, we know bone meal. Bone meal is a source of, it is the highest source of phosphorus. So phosphorus will mark first. Wherever there is no C, we will cut off that option. Fine. Then bone meal also, bone is a source of calcium also. I think all of you know that. So wherever there is no A, we will cut off that option. Now ABC or ABCD, molybdenum is not present in bone in such an appreciable amount. It is not present in bones only. We cannot say it is a source of molybdenum. Molybdenum is, you know, an essential micronutrient, but bones don't supply molybdenum. So it won't be option 3, it will be option 2. It supplies some portion of nitrogen, supplies a considerable portion of calcium and a huge portion of phosphorus. So bone meal, it is a fertilizer, organic fertilizer, that is manure, that is derived from bones of animals, and they supply calcium, nitrogen and phosphorus. So option 2 is the correct option, right? All right, moving on. Dolomite is the source of another straight question from pedology. This is a, like, you cannot get a question that is more straight than this. Like, they're directly asking dolomite is the source of. You just have to know the formula of dolomite, and I think all of you know that. That is CaCO3 and MgCO3. This is the formula of dolomite. So it is the source of calcium, magnesium, and the option will be A and B only. It does not contain iron, it does not contain sulfur. It contains calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate. So calcium and magnesium, it is the source of Ca and Mg, and it will be A and B only. Option 2, right? That's a very easy one. Moving on to the next question. When rainfall is inadequate to meet the evapotranspiration losses, usually occurs in humid regions. This is a question from agronomy. You should definitely not neglect agronomy, because agronomy consists of a major portion of the physical science group. I think you already know that. And this question is a classic question from dryland agriculture. This drought is a very important aspect of dryland agriculture, and I think you can read about the dryland agriculture from any standard book of agronomy, say RS Mida, competitive facts for agronomy, that book, or else any other book also, say Sir Reddy and Reddy, Principles of Agronomy. Everywhere you can find about the drought, and also if you find some good quality notes from many universities, there also you can find this. So you have to be very thorough about your agronomy, about dryland agriculture, watershed management, water management. These places, these portions of agronomy are very, very highly important for your JRF. And here the question says, when rainfall is inadequate to meet the evapotranspiration loss, usually you have to be very careful. See, here they say usually occurs in humid regions. So what do we think? What is our notion? That humid region means there is sufficient moisture. Like, we cannot even think only that there can be drought in humid region. Where there is raining, can there be drought? It is counterintuitive kind of, right? So here they have, in the first portion also, they have given when rainfall is inadequate. Inadequate, what is the meaning of inadequate? It means rainfall is there, rainfall is happening, the place is humid, there is presence of moisture, there is presence of rainfall, precipitation is happening, but that is not adequate, that is not capable, that is unable to meet the evapotranspiration loss. So what kind of drought it can be? If you have read it, you know by now that it is pakka, that is invisible drought. But even if you don't know it, with your common sense, you can see, like, contingent drought. You know the meaning of contingent, that if there is an abrupt failure of rainfall, then we can call it contingent drought. Meteorological drought, meteorological, you know, meteorology is related to weather, climatic. Here they are saying it occurs in humid region and there is presence of rainfall. So we cannot say it is a meteorological drought, because meteorological drought happens when there is lack of rainfall. There is long dry spells, no rainfall is happening. And permanent drought though is not possible, because there is humid region, there is presence of rainfall. How it can be permanent drought? Permanent drought can only occur with prolonged meteorological and hydrological drought. That can only lead to permanent drought in an area. So here all these three cannot take place. So invisible drought is the correct answer. A is the correct answer. Option 1, right? You should read agronomy. Please, you should be very, very thorough about agronomy, especially the dryland portion, watershed management and water management, right? Moving on. Very, very easy question of match the following. List 1 and list 2, there is event, there is observation. You just have to match it. This feels more like an English question than any question from agronomy or soil science. So harvest planning is, you know, planning of optimal route for harvesting equipment to maximize efficiency. So it will go like this. Soil sampling. Soil sampling is collecting soil samples at precise location for analysis and management decision. Pest management is tracking pest population and movements to inform control strategies, and boundary mapping is determining the field boundaries and property lines accurately. This question is from precision agriculture, say remote sensing, GIS, and all those, but it kind of feels more like an English question. If you know the meaning of the words, you can easily do it. So the answer to this question will be A3, B2, C1 and D4. Option 2. Correct? Alright, moving on. Another question from nitrogen cycle. Like I was saying in the previous video, this is the third question we are encountering from nitrogen cycle exclusively from a small part. Nitrogen is a big chapter. Out of that, nitrogen cycle is an important part, but it is small. And from that small part only, we are getting, this is the third question in the single examination. So I think you should know how much important is nitrogen cycle and how thoroughly you should read it, right? So here, this is a true false type question. Statement 1, nitrobacteria are obligate autotrophic aerobes. True. This is a true statement because if you see the process of nitrification, you will read about the nitrifying bacteria which are obligate autotrophic aerobes. They are obligate aerobic. They cannot survive without the presence of oxygen. If oxygen is not there, they cannot survive. They cannot perform the topic of they cannot perform the process of nitrification, right? And so this is a correct answer. Obligate, I think you know the meaning of obligate and facultative. Obligate means it cannot, it has to, like it is essential. Aerobic condition is essential for the survival of nitrobacteria. They cannot survive in the anaerobic condition in the absence of oxygen. Fine. And autotrophic, I think you know the meaning of autotrophic. Autotrophic means they use CO2 as their carbon source and not the organic matter. If they use organic matter as their carbon source, that is called heterotrophic. They use CO2 as their carbon source, so that is autotrophic. So this is a true statement, statement 1. Statement 2 is nitrate will not be produced from NH4 plus in the absence of oxygen. This is also a very, very true statement because the process of nitrification is essentially a process of oxidation. You see, it is a two-step process. From NH4 plus, it becomes NO2 minus, and then it becomes NO3 minus. So you can see this is a process of oxidation where this oxygen is getting added into nitrogen. And also, if you can think of it with the oxidation number, here you can see, here the oxidation number of nitrogen is minus 3 because hydrogen is here plus 4 and here NH4 plus, so it is 1 and plus 4 minus 3 is plus 1. So here the oxidation number of nitrogen is minus 3. In nitrite, the oxidation number is minus 4. The oxidation number of nitrogen changes to plus 3. So from minus 3 to plus 3, it is increasing. You can see the oxidation number is increasing. Here the oxidation number is plus 3 because oxygen is minus 4. Here there is 1 minus. So minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1. And in nitrate, the oxidation number is plus 5. You all know nitrogen has a very high range of oxidation number starting from NH3 where it is minus 3 to nitrate, the highest oxidation state where it is plus 5. So the oxidation state of nitrogen ranges from minus 3 to plus 5. Here you can see the oxidation is taking place and the oxidation number of nitrogen is increasing from minus 3 to plus 5 in the process of oxidation. So this process cannot take place without the presence of oxygen. Oxygen is essential for oxidation process, that you know, because oxygen is getting added to the nitrogen. Here the statement 2 says nitrate will not be produced from ammonium in the absence of oxygen. So this is also true. Here the answer will be both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. Fine. Moving on. Another question from soil physics, and you can see this is a physical parameter in the list 1 and units in the list 2. You have to be very thorough about units of everything: infiltration capacity, soil permeability, oxygen diffusion rate, thermal diffusivity, thermal conductivity, hydraulic conductivity. All these parameters you should definitely know the units. All right, you have to know the units because you can at least expect 1 or 2 questions for sure from the units portion of soil physics. They will definitely ask whether they are asking it in match the following or true or false type of question. Mostly they ask it in match the following type of question only. So units, you have to remember, my suggestion would be you make a chart, you make a note you make your own copy, you get a copy, you get out a fresh sheet and you make a table. In the left side, just like match the following, in the left side you put parameter and in the right side you put the unit, make a list. Say here they have given surface tension and the unit is Newton per meter. So you make a list and you paste it in your wall or you keep it in front of you, and if possible every day you check it once and you revise it thoroughly. And another one that is very important in this aspect is the dimension. That also you should remember. If possible, you write it in the same chart. Along with the unit, you make another column and you write the dimensional formula. Alright, you write the dimension, you write the unit and the parameter and you remember it thoroughly. Okay. Dimension also comes very frequently. If you analyze previous year questions, every 1 year, every 1 or 2 year, you will find a question from dimension of these physical parameters. So let's jump into the question. This one you should know. Surface tension is Newton per meter. The unit of surface tension is Newton per meter. And here we have particle density. The unit of density is gram per cc, megagram per meter cube, or kilogram per cubic meter. Both will be correct. Not a problem. And soil permeability. Permeability means infiltration, how far the soil is permeable, and that one will be, as you can see, meter per hour. How far the water is traveling per unit time, how far the water is traveling per unit time, that is the meter per hour. And viscosity is Pascal second. The unit of viscosity is Pascal second. This is the SI unit. Pascal is the unit of pressure and second is the unit of time. Pressure into time. If you forget, you can remember it in like this way. Viscosity is a force. So force is 6 pi eta r v, where r is the radius, v is the terminal velocity, 6 and pi are constant. So in this way, in force, the SI unit of force is Newton, and in the below it will come meter into meter per second, right? So meter into meter becomes meter square. So it becomes Newton per meter square. This second to the power -1 comes above and it becomes second. This Newton per meter square is the unit of pressure and it is Pascal. Pascal into second. So it is Pascal second, right? So the answer is option 3. You could have got it in the first instance only if you knew that surface tension is Newton per meter. Option like A2, there is only on one option, but I would suggest you should go for checking all the options thoroughly, because you might not get the correct answer in the first instance and your luck might not be so good. They might give all the 4 options with A2, so you should be thorough with all the, you have to read about all the parameters, and that's not a problem. This is not a hard question, but you have to remember it. There is no way. And I showed you the long process also. In case you don't remember in your exam hall, you can just go for deriving it out, but it will take lots of time, and time is also an important factor in your competitive exam. You should not waste your time. So moving on to the next question. This is also from soil physics. As you can see, soil physics is having more number of questions. This is the 4th or 5th question in this paper. So arrange the following forms of soil constituencies with decreasing soil weight. This is also very easy, as you know. Decreasing soil wetness. So they have asked from most wet to the least wet. Fine. So hard or harsh is the least wet. So A will be the last. Here I can see in the option that we have already got the answer. Still, we will write it in the proper way. So most wet among this is viscous. Viscous means the soil flows like a viscous liquid. The moisture content is so high. After that, it is sticky. Sticky means the soil sticks to anything wherever it is pasted. Like if you pick up the soil and throw it into a wall, it will go and stick into the wall because the moisture content is so high. So it will be DE, then it will be plastic. You know the meaning of plastic? I think you know it is a dynamic property of soil, and soil plasticity is nothing but the ability of soil to retain a shape when it is put to some deformation pressure and that pressure is removed. Say when a soil is put to some deformation pressure, the soil changes its shape, and when that pressure is removed, you would expect soil to move back to its original shape, but it is not the case. it stays in that deformed shape, and that property is called soil plasticity. And for soil plasticity, the prerequisite is at least 15% of clay should be there. At least 15% of clay particles should be there to make the soil plastic, right? So D, E, C is done. Then we have B, friable or soft. Friable or soft consistency is the perfect consistency for tillage operations and all other operations, which is having just the right amount of moisture to support plant growth. And hard or harsh is the extreme lack of moisture, extreme low moisture content in the soil, where the soil is in a big cohesive chunk of clay particles and it is very hard to break. That is why it is called hard or harsh. There is no amount of water, and on further drying, the soil mass will not shrink anymore because there is no appreciable quantity of moisture in it, right? So the answer is option 4. All right, moving on. Here we get another match the following from pedology. Pedology, this is the, I think, sixth question. You should know how important the pedology is and how thoroughly you should read it, both from ISSS and from JL Segal. So here you have to match the parent rock with their metamorphic rock, and this is also an easy one. So we'll start with the easiest one. We know coal. Coal gets converted to graphite. Sandstone gets converted to quartzite, right? So with these two options, we will try to check the answer. C1 and D4. Yeah, we are getting it. C1 and D4. So A is 3 and B is 2. Even if you don't know all the answers in match the following, this is a good thing. Like if you know, surely know one or two, you most probably you will get the answer. So here the answer is option 2, and it is an easy question, but you have to read the rocks portion. So moving on, this is another match the following question that is very easy. Here you can see they have given the name of the activity in the list 1 and they have given the direction in the list 2. And here you can solve this question with the knowledge of English language only. You don't need to remember anything or you don't need to mug up everything. You see here, phototropism, we all know phototropism is movement towards light, so it is bending towards light. Geotropism is movement towards soil, so it is bending towards soil. Geo is soil, photo is light. Tropism means movement. Thigmotropism is response to touch or movement. Thigmo means touch or movement. And photoperiodism, here this is the confusion. Do not confuse between photo is common. Photo, one is tropism and another is periodism, right? Photo period means response to day length. Period means length of the day, and tropism means movement. When a plant is moving towards light, it is phototropism. And when a plant is responding to the day length, 12-hour day length, 14-hour day length, 10-hour day length, that is photoperiodism, right? So photoperiodism is response to day length. Day length, you have to be careful. Length. Do not confuse between these two. So we get our answer. It is A3, B1, and it is option 1. That's a very easy one, right? All right, moving on to the next question. This is another assertion reasoning question. You have to be very careful. Manganese deficiency in plants primarily affects the photosynthetic process. Yes, we know this. Manganese is essential for photosynthetic activity of the plants. Why? Because manganese is a cofactor for several enzymes involved in the photosynthetic electron transport chain, facilitating electron transfer reactions within chloroplasts. This is also correct. So A is correct, R is correct, and A is the reason why R is correct. So the answer is option 1. Right? All right. You have to read this portion from mineral nutrition, and mineral nutrition chapter is very important. You have to read it thoroughly from ISSS, and you have to read the function of all the nutrients, essential nutrients. And moving on, another assertion reasoning type of question, not a problem. Here you can see a spelling mistake. It is Darcy's law. So Darcy's law is valid for a steady and stationary flow process in the soil. This is absolutely true. Why? Because in a steady flow condition, potential and gradient at every point in the flow path remain constant. True. Exactly. This is only because why Darcy's law is valid for smooth, steady, stationary and transient flow in the soil, and it is not valid for the turbulent flow, sorry, turbulent or transient flow. And Darcy's law is valid only for steady and stationary flow in the soil, because Potential and gradient at every point remains constant. So it is option 1. Both A and R are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. Right? Alright. Moving on. Another match the following. This is also a general knowledge question, you can say. You don't have to read anything, or you don't need to know all the things for answering this. This is a very easy one. Carcinogenic, we all know that promotes cancer. So it is option 1. What is pollution? Pollution results in photochemical smog. Photochemical smog is a result of pollution. You should remember this, and it happens in the warm areas where there is excessive nitrogen pollution, nitrous oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and all the oxides of nitrogen are there. And eutrophication, as I told you before also, it is over application of fertilizer and the flow of especially phosphorus and nitrogen into the water bodies is called eutrophication. Overload of nutrients, overwhelming nutrients that lead to problems like algal bloom, right? And gene is related to cell. So this is a very easy one, nothing problematic. A1, B2, C3. Oh, I'm sorry. What they are giving? Sorry. A1, B2, C4, and D3. So it is option C. You have to be very careful. See, I just checked option A, B, and I marked one. I have not checked C and D. That is wrong. You should not be like that. You have to be very serious and very careful while marking the answers, because if these questions are extremely easy questions and no one will make this wrong, right? So if you make this wrong, it is not only -1 for you, it is -5 for you, because this was a sure +4 for you, which you are not getting, and also you are getting -1 for it. So it is a -5. So you have to be very, very careful while marking the answer. That's why I told repeatedly, you read the question twice and you read the all the options twice or thrice to prevent any kind of error. Any kind of error you should prevent, and you should always double check the answers, right? So option 3 is the correct answer. Moving on, this is a year and this matching, and this one you have to remember, there is no other way, there is no shortcut for this. You have to remember what is this, and the answer is option 4. So you have to read the notes, you have to read the general agriculture books, and you should know the answer. So it is A2, B4, C1, and D3. There is no concept, nothing to explain in this, you just have to remember. Nothing we can do about it. But this is also very important, and you can expect 1 or 2 questions like this pakka, sure, for sure, in your JRF examination. Moving on, question number 58. Which of the following statement is not true for chloroplast? This is a question from cell biology. From cell, and it contains DNA as its genetic material. This is true. It produces ATP. This is also true. It has an electron transport chain. This is also true. So option 4 will be the correct answer, but still let's read it. It contains transcriptional but not translation apparatus. So this is the incorrect. This is not true. This also you have to be very careful. In many questions, they will just simply put a negative word in between, and if you do not check the word here, if you have not read not, then you could have just marked the first option and went on. Yeah, it contains genetic DNA as a genetic material. This is true for chloroplast. So let's go. So it should not be like that. You should definitely read the question twice, and you should mark it like it is not is there. So the answer will be option 4, right? This is also a very important topic from the point of view of the JRF exam. So here they have given some statements about the Indian remote sensing satellites, and there is no concept related to this. You just have to know this to answer it. So let's go for the answer. So Indian remote sensing satellites look over a fixed point at the same local time. This is true. Are at a low altitude of less than 1000 kilometers. That is also true. Used for weather forecasting. That is incorrect. IRS is not used for weather forecasting. It has large agricultural and natural resources application. This is also true. Provided services to telecommunication. No, telecommunication services are not provided by IRS. So the correct answer will be A, B, and D. That is option 1. From this section, you have to study a lot of things. You have to study some standard notes or any standard book, say any standard book of remote sensing, textbook of remote sensing. Also, the remote sensing chapter of the new IEEE, that is the 2020, sorry, the new IEEE edition of 2015. The book that is Soil Science and Introduction. That book has got a very nice chapter on remote sensing, and you can read that. Also, you can read from DK Das, Introductory Soil Science. But mostly, you have to be updated about the latest developments in remote sensing, and for that, you need to regularly visit websites of ISRO and other European Union satellite websites and everything for getting a good grip on it. And for GPS GIS sections, you can study any standard book and any standard notes of say TNAU or GKVK, and you can easily ace that part in the examination. So moving on, conversion period of an organic farm is generally for perennial crop. This is also from organic agriculture. As you can see, organic farming, this is probably the fifth or the sixth question in this single question paper. So I think you are understanding how much you have to put your effort or put your attention for organic farming, because until last year there were not much questions coming from organic farming. From this year only they have started, as they have started a MSc program in organic farming taken through the physical science group. So you must put your attention for organic farming, and you should read it from any standard agronomy book or also from any notes of some reputed universities. So this question has got nothing conceptual. You just have to know the answer to mark it. And conversion period of an organic farm is generally 3 years. Option 3 is the correct answer. All right. So moving on, now comes another question from the potassium chapter. This chapter is also very important and one of the major portions of the classical soil fertility section that also harbors a lot of questions in the JRF. So K fixing power of clay minerals, follow the order. This one you can find in both in old ISSS and new ISSS. The order that is nothing but first it will come vermiculite. Vermiculite, due to its very high layer charge and very high layer charge density, it fixes the most amount of potassium. So vermiculite will come first, and here you can see the option 2 has already been the correct answer because no other option has D as first. So after D, it will be elite, because you know elite contains a large amount of mica. Sorry, elite contains a large amount of potassium. Elite is nothing but hydrous mica. So if you read the mica weathering section from the new ISSS, there you will see that mica contains around 10% potassium, whereas hydrous mica or elite contains around 4 to 6% potassium, and it has also got a pretty high K fixing power. And after elite, of course, it will come montmorillonite, because kaolinite, as you know, due to its hydrogen bonding between the layers, 1:1 layers, it has got very strong hydrogen bonds, and therefore no ions can penetrate the C-axis or the basal spacing or the space between the two heats or the two 1:1 layers. So for kaolinite, the fixing power is the least. So option 2 is the correct answer. All right, moving on. Now another assertion and reasoning question. Here you have to be again very careful. So let's first read the statement. Ammonium based fertilizers are the major contributors to soil acidification. That is a true statement. Secondly, the reason is especially the non-leachable nitrogen ions which have been taken up by plants contribute to the soil acidity. Especially the non-leachable nitrogen ions which have been taken up by plants contribute to soil acidity. This is wrong. If the iron has already been taken up by plants, how can it contribute to soil acidity? That is totally a wrong statement. So the correct answer will be option 3, where A is true, but R, the whole statement, is only wrong. And yes, so option 3 is the correct answer. Coming to the next question, this is another question from pedology. So from pedology also you can see almost 6 to 7 questions are coming in a single paper. So pedology, you have to study very well, and as we all know, pedology is mostly memorized based, and it needs a lot of time and effort to actually grip the subject. So I would hope you will study very well and continuously revise the pedology portion for getting for answering these questions. So this is a true false type question where the surface of a pattern is roughly polygonal. That is absolutely true statement. This statement has been taken directly from the new ISSS, the Soil Science and Introduction book. There it has been written the surface of a pedon is roughly hexagonal. Hexagon means it contains 6 sides, and polygon means it contains many number of sides. So that many number can be 5, can be 6, can be 7. So roughly it is polygonal, it is hexagonal, it may be pentagonal, may be heptagonal, octagonal, it does not matter. And the statement 2 is the surface area of a pattern ranges from 1 meter square to 10 meter square. This is also absolutely correct. So the correct answer will be both the statement 1 and statement 2 are true. Alright. So you have to thoroughly read the books, thoroughly read the pedology portions, and I think the definition of pedon. Pedon is the smallest soil unit that we can call as a soil, and it differs from the soil profile being three-dimensional. Soil profile is two-dimensional, but pedon is three-dimensional. It is the smallest basic unit that we can call a soil, and many pedons together form, I think you know this, polypedon. Polypedon is also known as soil individual. And what is a polypedon? Like, how would you demarcate how much is a polypedon? So for polypedon, the neighboring pedon should be completely different, or it should be surrounded by non-soil materials. So say many pedons are grouped together into a polypedon, and these pedons must be bordered with or surrounded by non-soil materials or pedons of completely different characteristics. Then you can call that portion a polypedon or a soil individual that has a minimum area of 1 kilometer square. You can see here 1 meter square to 10 meter square is pedon, whereas polypedon is minimum area is 1 kilometer square and the maximum area is unspecified. So maximum area, it can go up to any amount or any value. It can be 100 kilometer square, it can be 200 kilometer square. There is no fixed maximum area. All right. So moving on to the next question. Another assertion reasoning type of question. So you have to be very, very, very careful. This is a very, very good question. You see, intense weathering of soil shifts its ZPC towards higher pH owing to greater accumulation of iron and aluminium oxides. So we have to break up this statement. This statement is not that easy. We know what intense weathering does. Intense weathering of soil leaches down the basic cations out from the topsoil, out from the soil profile, right? So the pH becomes acidic. And acidic pH means there will be a preponderance of positive charge in the soil clay colloids, right? And also there is a dominance of Fe2O3 and all those sesquioxides, as we know, Al2O3 and Fe2O3. They are also very prominent in contributing to positive charge in the soil. So if the soil is loaded with positive charge, for the ZPC, ZPC means the surface charge, overall surface charge will be 0. So for more number of positive charge, we will be needing more number of negative charge to balance the charge and make it 0. And more number of negative charge can be supplied by what? OH minus. So more number of negative charge can be supplied by OH minus, and OH minus can be available at high pH. So here what the statement is saying, that intense weathering of soil shifts its ZPC towards higher pH owing to greater accumulation of iron and aluminium oxide. So this is correct. Here we can see, right, OH minus ions is required for neutralizing the positive charge that has developed due to iron and aluminium oxides, and also due to leaching down of the bases, making the pH acidic, right? So it shifts towards higher pH. That is true, because OH minus ion is available only at higher pH. So this statement is correct, right? Now coming to the reason statement, the application of organic matter in soil also pushes the ZPC towards higher pH. This is wrong. Higher pH it cannot be. Why? I think by now you have got the concept and you already know the answer. Still, let me explain. Organic matter, we know organic matter is highly negatively charged. So organic matter contributes to the more negative charge in the soil colloid, because the amount of negative charge will be increased with the addition of organic matter. So this will require what? This will require for neutralization more number of H plus ions, and more number of H plus ions are available at a lower pH. It is available at a lower pH. So with addition of organic matter, the ZPC will be pushed to lower pH and not higher pH. So the correct answer is option 3, where A is correct, but the statement R is not correct. All right. Moving on. This is a very easy question from the soil mineralogy, and this is totally a straight question. The most common 1:1 type of clay mineral in soil is, I think you all know this, kaolinite. This question will be answered by everyone, and not a single one will miss this. So let's move on. From here, you have to read the examples. You have to read all the examples of 1:1, 2:1, and 2:1:1 type of minerals. Besides the common ones, you have to remember some of the uncommon ones as well, like halloysite, serpentine, dikite, nacrite. all those minerals also, you should thoroughly read the examples. All right. Moving on to the next question. There is a match the following. This is from general agriculture, or you can say agronomy, water management. So you have to match the list 1 crops with the water requirement in centimeter in the list 2. So here we know that sugarcane is a highly water requiring crop and it will require 200 centimeter, because you might get confused between sugarcane and rice, but the total amount of water, since rice is cultivated in standing water, you might get the feeling that rice requires more water, but it is not true, because sugarcane is a long crop. It goes on for 1 year, sometimes for 1.5 years. Those Adsali and all those varieties you might have read. So cumulative. While talking cumulative, since sugarcane is such a long duration crop, yes, it does not need standing water. That is true, but cumulative water requirement is higher than rice plants. That is why here, sugarcane will be having 200 centimeter requirement, whereas rice will be having 100 centimeter requirement. Even if you don't know the exact values, you can solve this question through common sense. Like I said, cumulative water requirement of sugarcane is higher than rice, because rice is a short crop. You know, it only goes, it can be a 90 days variety, it can be a 120 days variety, 135 days variety, maximum it can go up to 180 days, but not more than that. Whereas sugarcane can go up to 1 year also. All right. So let's take the options now. A1 and B2. So we get our answer A1, B2, and C will be 3 and D will be 4, because leafy vegetables, we know it requires very less amount of water. So this is the answer. This is an easy one, but you should be thorough with your general knowledge and your general agriculture concepts. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following statements are true for tensiometer? Another question from soil physics, particularly from soil water. So I think you can understand the emphasis that you need to give on the soil water chapter. So let's dive onto the statements. Which of the following statements are true? We need to find the true statements. Tensiometer measures water potential. That is the correct statement. So if whichever option does not have A, we will cut that option. It is simple in operation and very useful for scheduling irrigation. This is also a true statement. So whichever option does not have B, we will cut off that. So now the question is, will it be ABC or ABD? It can also be used for measuring soil water flux. That is a true statement, because tensiometer can be used for measuring soil water flux. So we have already got our answer, but still it is option 1, but still let's read the last statement. Although limited to -1 bar metric potential, this range can be increased by increasing the permeability of its porous cup. No, that is not possible, because if it was the case, then you would not be reading the 0.85 bar value in the textbooks. You cannot just increase the capacity of the tensiometer. You just cannot, because it does not depend on the permeability of the porous cup. It has nothing to do with the capacity of the tensiometer. After an increased suction beyond 0.85 bar, the water column only will break and there will be entry of air. So there will be no equilibrium between the soil water and water inside the tensiometer tube. That's the reason beyond 0.85 bar, the water column will break, the continuity of the water column will break, and there can be no reading. So tensiometer will become inoperative beyond 0.85 bar. So this range cannot be increased by increasing the permeability of its porous cup. So this statement is wrong. So A, B, C are correct statements, and option 1 is the correct answer. All right. Moving on to the next question. Another question from soil fertility. This is also a very easy one. According to Bray's nutrient mobility concept, which among following element is mobile in plant? You have to be very careful and thorough while reading the question. Mobile in plant, immobile in soil. So mobile in plant is nitrogen and phosphorus. Immobile in soil is phosphorus. So the answer is phosphorus, because also, although phosphorus is an anion, still it is immobile in soil, because it very easily gets precipitated or gets absorbed into the soil colloids by the process of, I think you should very thoroughly read the phosphorus chapter, because it is very, very important. You should know what is ligand exchange and what are these methodologies or the mechanisms by which phosphorus becomes immobile in soil. So it might get absorbed to the soil colloids by the process of ligand exchange, or it might get precipitated. It might get precipitated as iron and aluminium phosphates in acidic soils, and in calcareous or in like soils with a higher pH due to the abundance of calcium carbonate, abundance of calcium, it will get precipitated as calcium phosphate in the high pH soil, and in the low pH soils it will get precipitated as Al and Fe phosphates, and it also will get absorbed into the soil colloids, into the soil aluminosilicate clays by means of mechanism like ligand exchange, and to some extent it will be anion exchange as well. Like cation exchange, you know, anion exchange, the mineral having the highest anion exchange capacity is kaolinite because it is having the lowest CEC. And so this is the concept of why phosphorus is immobile in soil, and that is why this is a very important question and a very easy one from the soil fertility, and you should know it, that phosphorus is mobile in plants, completely mobile in plants, but it is immobile in soil. And because it is mobile in plants, you will find the deficiency symptoms in the lower leaves, right? I think you know this concept. In the upper and young leaves, you will not find the deficiency symptoms because the plant will send the whatever the remaining phosphorus is to the growing portions. Like humans and other animals, they tend to care their babies, their child. Similarly, plant will also try to do that, take care of the younger growing portion, whereas the old portions, lower portions, will show the deficiency symptoms. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Removal of lime in solution from upper to the lower part of the soil leads to the formation of. This is also a straight question from the pedology portion. So this is, I think, the 8th question from pedology in this paper, and I think again and again I am telling you have to be very thorough. This question does not require any concept. You have to know the answer. You have to know the answer, and that is kakor. In English, it is kankar. In Bengali or other languages, it is called kakor. So it is kankar. Option 4 is the correct answer. All right, moving on. Option 4. Moving on to the next question. So this is again a true false type of question. The statement 1 and statement 2. Let's read the statement 1. The capacitance method measures soil moisture content by analyzing changes in electrical capacitance, offering precise numerical readings due to its direct correlation with moisture levels. This is true. Like resistance, you know, there is a property called capacitance in electricity, and this capacitance method measures soil moisture content by analyzing changes in electrical capacitance, because that change in the electrical capacitance is related to the water content or the moisture content of the soil, which says the moisture level in the soil, because it is in direct correlation. With the variability in the level of moisture in the soil, there will be variability in the capacitance. So this is a true statement. The finger licking method estimates soil moisture content based on tactile sensations, yielding subjective numerical values prone to individual interpretation basis. There is nothing like the finger licking method. You cannot just simply lick your finger after touching the soil water, after touching the soil, just to measure the soil moisture. It if it was the feel method or the touch and feel method, just by touching only you will get to know how much moisture is there, it would have been correct, because the touch and feel method estimates soil moisture content based on tactile sensations. This is true, yielding subjective numerical values prone to individual interpretation bias. Yes, because a single individual can interpret it in a certain way. Say you can interpret it as high moisture, whereas I can interpret it as low moisture. It is based on our own bias. What is more, what is less, that is relative from human to human, right? So this statement would have been true if the name of the method was correct. The name of this method is wrong. There is no method like finger licking method. There is no method like finger licking method. You cannot find it in any textbook. That is why statement 2 is wrong. So the correct answer will be statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Except this name of the method, the other full statement is correct. If you see closely, the whole statement is correct except this name of the method. And just for the name of this method being wrong, this whole statement becomes wrong, right? So option 3 is the correct option. All right, moving on. Again, another question. This is from environmental science. As you can see, you have to match the act along with the year in which they were implemented. So this also needs no concept. You just have to know it. Environment Protection Act. I think you should know it. This is basic common general knowledge and basic environmental science. You should of course know it. So the Environment Protection Act is 1996. Then Water Prevention and Control of Pollution is 1974. And then let's check the options. A2, there is only one option, so we already got the our correct option. and D is 1, Wildlife Protection Act. So option 1 is correct here. All right. Moving on. Which of the following nutrient is related with deficiency symptoms like discoloration of leaf bud, breaking and dropping of bud? This is also a question from mineral nutrition of plants, and also it is an important question from the point of view of general agriculture. And there you have to remember it, you have to memorize it, and the correct answer is boron. Option 1. This boron is related with deficiency symptoms like discoloration of leaf buds, breaking and dropping of the buds. So boron is related to the bud health of the plant. All right. Moving on to the next question. Given below are two statements, another assertion and reasoning type of question. And let's see, we have to read the question very carefully. The break of monsoon at critical stages for soil moisture stress leads to a reduction in yield. This is absolutely true because break of monsoon will break the supply of water, and at critical stages, water is very important. So it will, of course, lead to reduction in yield. True. Only when the break of monsoon exceeds 15 days duration or more. So 29. I think yes. Only when the break of monsoon exceeds 15 days duration or more. So both the statements are correct, and this statement correctly justifies the assertion, and I will explain you why. Because the break needs to be more than 15 days at least, because until that time the soil has enough storehouse of moisture to sustain the plant. You know, soil is a reservoir of moisture, soil is a reservoir of soil water, it is a storehouse of moisture. So until 15 days it can sustain the plant, for 15 days it can maintain the plant yield and plant health. But if that break of monsoon extends 15 days, then the soil reservoir, the soil water storage gets exhausted, and soil cannot provide or refresh the availability of water to the plants. All right. So option 1 will be the correct option, where both A and R are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. All right. Moving on to the next question. Another match the following question, where you have to match the scientist along with the theory they have proposed. So don't worry, even if you don't know all the theories and all the scientists, you can use the elimination method, elimination trick, and you can answer this question. This question is from previous year, as far as I can remember. This question was also asked in 2023 JRF. This question or a question very similar to this in 2023 JRF also they have asked. So here we will first try to match the ones we already know. So mechanics we know is Kepler. So C will be 2, and there are 3 options with C2. So we will cut off the first option. Then hydrodynamics we know is Daniel Bernoulli. You have read Bernoulli's theorem, you have read Bernoulli's formula and principles. So A will be 1, and still there are 2 options remaining. And acoustics was given by Helmholtz. So B will be 3. And finally, we get our correct answer, that is option 4. Aerodynamics was given by Ludwig Prandtl. Alright, so it is A1, B3, C2, and D4. Fine. Let's move on. The steady state soil infiltration rate is another question from soil physics, that too particularly from soil water. So soil water, even if you have read it thrice, you have to read another 3 times just to make it extremely clear, because soil water fetches lots of question in any examination you say. So the answer of this question will be the steady state soil infiltration rate is soil profile controlled, because the steady state infiltration rate is not affected by anything else. What is the steady state infiltration rate? It is when the soil is saturated, the infiltration at that point of time is the steady state infiltration rate. There is no transient flow, there is no addition or deletion of water. It is a same amount of water that is present, and that steady state infiltration is only profile controlled. How far the profile is porous, how far the profile is permeable, that determines the steady state soil infiltration rate, and it is not controlled by soil surface or the water supply or groundwater, because it has been stated as steady state. All right. So option 2 is the correct option. Let's move on to the next question, where arrange the following consequences of submergence in the soil in the correct sequence. This question is a bit vague. Like, what are they trying to say by correct sequence? That is not entirely clear, and you have to face some questions like this in the examination. You cannot do anything. You have to face it. You have to face these questions. So we will try to solve this, but the question is not very clear. What are they trying to say? So after submergence in correct sequence, maybe they are saying according to the time, like what will happen first and what will happen last. So the first will be after submergence, there will be depletion of oxygen. That is true. So option 3 and option 4 are eliminated. So depletion of oxygen is the first criteria. All right. Then there will be accumulation of toxic substances like hydrogen sulfide, loss of beneficial soil organism in this soil, pH in acidic soil. Okay, so loss of beneficial soil organisms will be the second one, because with the depletion of soil oxygen, the aerobic microorganisms will start to die. And most of the beneficial microorganisms present in soil are aerobic. So after A, it will be C. We will see a loss in the beneficial soil organisms. So the answer will be option 1. So depletion of soil oxygen, then loss of beneficial soil organism, then accumulation of toxic substances like hydrogen sulfide, and finally, I think you know this, in the submerged soil chemistry, you will get to know if you have read the D.K. Das book, Introductory Soil Science, that submerged soil pH always attains neutrality. If the soil was initially alkaline in condition, then after submergence, the pH will go towards the neutral value. Whereas if the soil was acidic at first, then with submergence, the pH will also attain the neutral value. And the chemistry behind this is a bit complex. I don't think that explanation is necessary now. But if you want, you can ask in the comments and I will explain it in the later videos. But you have, if you read the DK Das Introductory Soil Science, there the submergence has been explained very nice. Or if you read the Physical Chemistry and Mineralogy of Soil by Dr. S.C. Datta, in that book also it has been explained very nicely that why there is the pH always tries to attain the neutral value upon submergence. But this change in pH takes some time. Sometimes it might take a week or it might take days, like 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, sometimes even a month. So this will come last in the sequence of time. So I think they are trying to ask according to the order of time, and ACBD will be the correct answer according to my opinion. So let's check the correct answer, and that is option 1. Option 1, yes. We have solved it correctly. All right. Let's move on to the next question. This is another question from pedology, probably the 10th question. I lost my count. And this is from weathering. Weathering, you have to be very thorough. Weathering is very easy and you have to understand it, and you have to be very thorough. So chemical weathering involving complete disintegration or modification in structure and composition of primary minerals. This is a very, very well-known question from weathering. This has been asked in several competitive exams, be it general agriculture exam, soil science exam. So you must know the answer of this, and the answer is hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is also called the forerunner of clay formation, and hydrolysis is the most important chemical weathering process in context of soil formation and anything. Any important process related to chemical weathering, the answer is mostly hydrolysis, and here the answer will be hydrolysis. From here, you have to read the definition of all the other terms. Hydration is the chemical combination of water along with the mineral. Oxidation is the chemical combination of oxygen along with the mineral, and carbonation is the chemical combination of carbon dioxide with any base. So all these definitions you have to be very thorough, very clear. You have to have a definite concept, and then you can have no problem from the weathering portion. And the answer of this question, this chemical weathering involving complete disintegration or modification in structure and composition of primary minerals, is hydrolysis. All right, moving on to the next question. Again, another straight question having nothing special. This, if you know, you can answer it. If you don't know, you cannot answer it, even if you try many times. So which of the following is an aromatic amino acid? You just have to know the answer of this. There is no other way, and the answer is tyrosine. Option 3 is the correct answer. Option 3, tyrosine. Right? Let me check once. Yes, we are correct. Tyrosine is the aromatic amino acid. All right. Here you can check the structure of all the amino acids in Google, or you can do, like, you can check it in any standard NCERT book or any other biochemistry book. From biomolecules in 2023, sorry, in 2022 JRF they have asked almost 12 to 13 questions. In 2023 JRF they have asked 3 to 4. So biomolecule section, you should be very thorough and very clear about it. And as I have already said previously, you have to read it from NCERT for clearing your concept, or you can follow any other basic books also. But you have to be very thorough about biochemistry, about biomolecules, and that is very, very important from the point of view of JRF. In JRF, they will ask at least 3 to 4 questions, the minimum, right? Let's move on to the next question. Another very straight and easy question from pedology. But here, as I can see, there might be a problem of like haste. If you read the question very hastily and without reading the full question, if you mark the answer, you will get -1. All right. So you have to read the question twice and you have to read the options twice. Then only you can be very sure. So mixing of soil matrix within a pedon resulting in irregular or broken horizons. Until this, if you read, you will feel like, oh, I know the answer is pedoturbation. If you mark pedoturbation, you will get a big -1. And this is not -1, this will be -5. Because this was a very easy question that you should have perfectly correctly answered, that you are doing wrong, you are marking it wrong just because you did not read the question properly. You just read it hastily and you mark the wrong answer and you get a -5. All right. So for avoiding that -5, what we need to do? We need to read the question correctly. So let's read the question again. Mixing of soil matrix within a pedon, that is pedoturbation, resulting in irregular or broken horizons, that is also pedoturbation, over permafrost. These last two words changes the whole question and the answer. Over permafrost means the answer will be cryoturbation. So if you would have not read the question correctly, you would have got a big -5. So the correct answer will be cryoturbation, option 4. Here you have to read all these processes very thoroughly, all the other options, and any other question in this year's JRF might come from one of these options and you have to answer it. So eluvation, pedoturbation, eluvation, I think you already know. Eluvation and eluvation are fundamental pedogenic processes and pedoturbation is a specific pedogenic process, and it means the mixing of soil horizon, mixing of soil layers. And cryoturbation, pedoturbation, you have to know the difference. There is other turbation like argilly pedoturbation that is found in black soils where the self-churning soils due to swelling and shrinking of clay takes place. There is other type of pedoturbation called faunal pedoturbation where the fauna, that is the animals, are the contributors of pedoturbation in the soil, and there is also floral pedoturbation where plant roots or plants are responsible for the pedoturbation. All right. So pedoturbation in broad way, it means mixing of soil matrix or it mixing of soil horizons, and there are different pedoturbation that you have to be very thorough about. So answer of this is cryoturbation. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Arrange the following in decreasing order according to the number of linkages among silicon tetrahedra. That is a very easy question. You know, three-dimensional silicate having the most number of linkage is tecto. So the highest will be tecto. C will be the first option. C. So let's check here. We already got our answer. C in the first option is only in option 2. So option 2 is the correct answer. Still, we'll check C. Then it will be phyllosilicate. B. These are sheet silicates. I think you know. Then D is inosilicates. These are also called chain silicates. These are got lesser number of linkage than both tecto and phyllo. And finally, it is nesosilicate, which is single tetrahedron, which only contains one tetrahedron having 4 Si and O linkage. So the number of linkage among silicon tetrahedra. Oh, they have not asked Si and O linkage. They have asked among the tetrahedra. So there is no linkage among the tetrahedra in the nesosilicate because these are isolated tetrahedra present in the mineral structure of nesosilicate like olivine, which is consisting of individual tetrahedron and there is no such linkage. So nesosilicate comes at last. All right, decreasing order. So you have to be very careful while reading the question. They have asked decreasing order and not increasing. If it was increasing, it would have been the opposite option. And I think there is an option which was absolutely opposite of this. Let me check option 1. Achha, no, they have not given it. So anyhow, that is not our concern. Option 2 will be the correct option. All right. Moving on to the next question. Laterite soil is rich in, very straight, very easy, very very basic question from pedology, from lateritic soil. So laterite soil is rich in, everyone knows this I think, that is Fe, iron. Because laterite soils are red in color, it has got a huge amount of sesqui oxide content. It contains Fe2O3, iron oxide, ferric oxide, and calcium is leached down into the lower horizons, and so there is less calcium present in laterite soil, and carbon is also less because you know organic matter is very less in laterite soils due to high decomposition rate. Laterite soils are mainly found in tropical regions having high temperature and high precipitation, so the organic matter decomposition rate is very high, so carbon will also be less, and copper is a micronutrient that no soil, like you cannot say laterite soil is rich in copper because the parent material does not contain copper, and until and unless there is external source of copper or any other thing, there cannot be an abundance of copper in the laterite soil. So the answer will be, of course, Fe, ferrous and aluminium. All the sesquic oxides are rich in laterite soils. All right. So moving on to the next question. Humic substances are composed of. This one is also a very easy question from soil organic matter. Humic substances, it contains all the functional groups present in organic compounds. So it will be phenols, quinones, carboxylic acid, fatty acid, everything, all of this. So the answer will be option 3, A, B, C, and D. Whatever functional group is there, you can find it in humic substance because the structure is so complex. You cannot say for sure, you cannot designate that only this functional group is present. All types of functional groups are present in humic substances. All right. Moving on to the next question. Arrange the following in decreasing order of basal spacing. Basal spacing is nothing but the c-axis spacing. What is the c-axis? If there are 3 dimensions, then there is A. Say this is A, this is B, and this is C. This is the c-axis spacing. So the space between two sheets, all right, space between two layers of, in case of montmorillonite, illite, and vermiculite, between 2:1 layers, the space is the c-axis spacing, and in case of kaolinite, between 1:1 layers, the spacing is the c-axis spacing. All right. So you have to know this. This is a very basic question from mineralogy, and I don't think there will be any problem in solving this question. So here you should know one terminology: the difference between sheet and layer. Sheet is two-dimensional. All right. So sheet is in the only in the A and B axis. When the C axis comes into play, like there is one sheet and the C axis spacing, and there is another sheet. This whole thing is called a layer. All right. So the C axis spacing is between two sheets, and the whole sheet plus C axis makes a layer. Fine. So let's dive into the question. We have deviated from the question. We have to arrange the minerals in the decreasing order of basal spacing. So the mineral with the highest basal spacing, of course, is montmorillonite, due to its swelling properties, and also the c-axis spacing is highest. And after montmorillonite, it will be vermiculite, so it will be D. Then it will be illite, and we know kaolinite has the least basal spacing or c-axis spacing, that is only 7.13 angstrom, and angstrom means 10 to the power minus 10 meter. All right. So montmorillonite is around 14 to 15. So it is almost double as that of kaolinite, as you can see. So you have to remember these values. You can read it from any standard books. It is in all the ISSS and all the standard textbooks of soil science. You have to read this and you have to remember. Remembering the value might not be that important, but it's better if you remember the values of the common minerals, like I said, kaolinite having 7.13. So in that way, you have to remember, and but the order you have to remember, and it is not hard. Also, you can remember it easily. So the answer will be B. I already wrote, then I rubbed it. B, D, C, A. B, D, C, A is option 4. All right. Move on. Let's move on to the next question. Release of iron from primary minerals and their dispersal as coatings on soil particles to impart brown to red color to soil particles. This is also another question from pedology. This is, I think, the 11th or 12th question from pedology, and again I'm repeating the same words. You have to be very thorough about the pedology portion, and the answer to this question is brownification, ferruginization, rubification. All these three are the same processes, and all these three processes are, the definition is release of iron from primary minerals and their dispersal as coatings on soil particles to impart brown to red color to soil particles. So the answer will be A, B, and C only, because in option D you can see laterization, and laterization is not release of iron from primary minerals and dispersal as coatings on soil particles. Laterization is accumulation of sesquic oxide. It is not necessarily iron, it can be aluminium also. So accumulation of sesquic oxide in the topsoil layer and the removal of silica and humus from the topsoil layer to the lower soil horizons, that is lateralization. So lateralization is not the answer. So A, B, and C will be the answer. Even if you did not know these three terms, only if you knew lateralization, you could have answered this question, because there is only one option without the D statement, D word in it, and it will be the correct answer. All right, moving on to the next question. This is a very easy question from soil physics. I think you know, this is from the chapter Physical Properties of Soil. You can read from new ISSS, old ISSS, any textbook, and all will have the same thing. The International Union of Soil Science Classification System, fine sand size range of. If you remember it, very fine. Even if you don't remember it, it's not a problem. So you can always write the chart and derive it. So the correct answer here for fine sand will be 0.02 to 0.2 millimeter. Option 2, not option 3. For this, we can quickly write the table. Not a problem. Less than 0.02 millimeter is clay. All right. Then from 0.002 to 0.02, it is silt. All right. Then from 0.02 to 0.2, you just have to remove the decimal point by, you just have to shift it towards right side. Like you have to just multiply by 10 and shift the decimal point towards one place in the right, and you will get the answer. So this is fine sand. And finally 0.222, that is coarse sand, CS. All right. So they have asked fine sand. For fine sand, it is 0.02 to 0.2, 0.02 to 0.2, and that is option 2. Option 2 is the correct answer. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Which group is this? They have given such a nice figure and they are asking which group is this. So this is another question from biomolecules, and this is the functional group CHO, that is an aldehyde. What is the name of this compound that they have given here? I think you know. This is formaldehyde. All right, this is a formaldehyde, HCHO. If it was CH3CHO, that is acetaldehyde. All right. So this CHO is an aldehyde functional group, and the correct answer is option C. And you can write it in notation as this CHO. CHO. This is an aldehyde group. All right. This is another question from biomolecule. So let's move on. Here is another another match the following from environmental science. You can say it as general knowledge question also, because it has got nothing special. So you have to match the type of pollution with the effect they create. So point source pollution, just from reading the name, you getting to know that point source, there will be a definite source, definite identifiable point source. And let's read the right column. Pollution that originates from a specific, specific identifiable source, such as a factory or a sewage treatment plant. We can specifically identify the point from where the pollution is happening. That is called the point source pollution. So it will be A1. Let's see the options. There are three A1s. So we need to put some more effort into this question. Non-point source pollution, of course, it will be the diffuse source, where we cannot identify a single point, like pollution that comes from diffuse source such as agricultural runoff or urban stormwater. Exactly, agricultural runoff, you just cannot say, right, that this has come from this portion of the field and on this soil only. The runoff is coming from a huge area, the huge command area, everything can come under that, the influence of that runoff, right? So you just cannot specifically say which field has contributed to that pollution. It is a mix up of all the fields, all the sources. So non-point source is pollution that comes from diffuse sources. So B will be 2. Let's check the options again. B2, there are again two options. All right. Another option we need to study. Groundwater pollution is contamination of underground water sources, often caused by industrial spills or improper waste disposal. That is true. So option 3 is the correct answer. This is a very easy question. Nothing to do here. Nothing, no concept, nothing. You can just mark it simply. Surface water pollution, you can know what is surface water. Water that is present in the rivers, in the lakes, in the ponds, present in the earth's surface is surface water. And the pollution of lakes, rivers, and oceans due to various human activities such as industrial discharge, agricultural runoff, and sewage overflow. So it is A1, B2, C3, and D4. All right, A1, B2, C3, D4. You have to check it twice and we can move on. Alright, the form of phosphorus in rock phosphate, this also you should know. This is from the phosphorus chapter. This is from the fertilizer phosphorus. And the form of phosphorus present in rock phosphate is tricalcium phosphate, which is insoluble in water. Alright, tricalcium phosphate is water insoluble. So for making this phosphate soluble and available to the plants, we need to apply acid. Acid like, say, sulfuric acid, H2SO4, or phosphoric acid, and we have to make this phosphate soluble so that it can be taken up by plants. Plants can only take nutrients that are water soluble, and it cannot extract insoluble or precipitated nutrients, right? So rock phosphate contains tricalcium phosphate. This is the formula. You can see Ca3PO4 whole twice, and that's why for application of rock phosphate directly into the field, you have to first acidulate it. Otherwise, the availability of phosphorus will be very, very, very slow, and it might not affect at all the crops in the field. All right. Moving on to the next question. Trace elements that show affinity for sulfide minerals. This question is from micronutrients chapter. There it has been clearly written. If you have read the ISSS, you have read all these terms. Siderophiles are iron loving elements. Chalcophiles are sulfur loving elements. Lithophiles are silicate loving elements. And hydrophile, I think, are water loving elements. So you can easily make out which one is what, and you can thoroughly read this portion from the old ISSS book of the chapter Mineral Nutrition, and the answer of this question will be chalcophile. Whichever element that show affinity for sulfide minerals are chalcophiles. If they show affinity for iron minerals, they are called siderophiles. If they show it for aluminosilicates, for silicate minerals, they are called lithophiles. Alright, moving on to the last question of this session. Given below are two statements, another true false type of question, so we have to be very careful while studying this. Acid sulfate soils can release harmful concentration of heavy metal such as aluminium, iron and manganese into the environment under acidic conditions. This is true. This statement is correct because acid sulfate soils having low pH, they make these heavy metals, aluminium, iron, manganese and these things soluble. That's why they can release them into the environment under acidic conditions, because under reduced conditions, when ferric transforms into ferrous, mangana like Mn4 plus is transformed into Mn2 plus, these things become more soluble in their reduced form, and they are more easy to be released into environment under acidic conditions. So this statement is absolutely true. The second statement is acid sulfate soils are typically characterized by their high organic matter content, true, which contributes to their fertility and ability to support diverse plant life. This is wrong. Acid sulfate soils are not fertile. They might have very high organic matter content, that is true. But a soil is only fertile when it has the nutrient supplying ability as well. Only containing the nutrient does not make the soil fertile. It has to be able to supply as well. This organic matter is locked in the acid sulfate soil in reduced condition, in submerged condition, and it is not available to the plants. So this soil is not fertile, and also ability to support diverse plant life is totally wrong. Acid sulfate soils can never support diverse plant life. It can only support a very narrow range of plant life. Say rice, it can support under submerged conditions. Acid sulfate soils can support rice, but wide diversity of plant life, that is totally wrong. Acid sulfate soils can never support diverse plant life. So statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is absolutely false. So option 3 will be the correct answer. All right. So moving on to the next question, we have got another easy one from soil physics. As you can see, there are many questions from soil physics in this paper. Particularly, it has crossed almost 15 questions. So you must put your attention thoroughly for studying the soil physics part. However, this is an easy one. It asks for matching list 1 with list 2, where in list 1 they have given the theory proposed or the characteristic, like some phenomenon they have given, whereas in list 2 they have given the name of the scientist or the name of the law that governs the phenomenon that is given in the first list. So these are all the basic principles of soil physics if you see closely, and let's just dive right into it. So the saturated flow in soil is governed by Darcy's law. We know that because the flow is saturated, there is no transient flow, and the potential and other parameters remain constant in every point, and the Darcy's law is valid for a saturated flow of water in the soil. And soil texture analysis, we all know it is governed by Stokes' law, the principle of sedimentation, and the wavelength of emitted radiation and temperature relation is given by Wien's law, also known as Wien's displacement law. And finally, the diffusive flux of gas, that is governed by Fick's law. It is also called Fick's law of diffusion. So the answer of this question will be A2, B4, C1, and D. That is option 3. So here you have to thoroughly read about all these laws. You have to be very, very clear about these basic laws of soil physics, where I will give you an initial explanation. The Wien's law, the Wien's displacement law, is the law that governs the wavelength of the emitted radiation. That is the wavelength of the maximum emitted radiation to temperature, and it is denoted by lambda max. That is the wavelength of the maximum emitted radiation is equal to B by T, where B is a constant, it's called Wien's constant, and T is the absolute temperature. So how it is related? The wavelength max is proportional to indirectly proportional to the temperature of the body from where the wavelength is emitted. So it is inversely proportional. Lambda max is inversely proportional to the absolute temperature of the body. This is the Wien's law. Now coming to the Darcy's law, I think you all know Darcy's law governs the saturated flow of water in the soil, and it gives the concept of hydraulic conductivity and also the concept of hydraulic gradient, right? And the mathematical expression is flux of water is equal to minus k dh dx, where k is the hydraulic conductivity and dh dx is the hydraulic gradient, and q is the flux of water saturated having saturated flow in the soil. So you have to be very thorough about all these mathematical expressions and the statements of the law, and you have to be very, very careful while studying them because these are very basic concepts and these are very important. And coming to the Fick's law, it is also the same. It gives the diffusive flux of gas, which is equal to minus d by dc dx, where this dc dx is the concentration gradient and d is the diffusion constant, also called the coefficient of diffusion. And similarly, for Stokes' law, I think you already know that it is the terminal velocity of any particle falling through a liquid is directly proportional to the square of the radius of the particle. Alright, so it means that the terminal velocity, the velocity that is attained by a falling particle inside a fluid after a certain point of time when all the force balances out and still the particle continues to travel downwards, that velocity, that constant velocity is called terminal velocity, and it is related to the square of radius of the particle. So it means that it is dependent on the circumference of the radius of the particle and not the surface characteristics or surface texture of the particle. Alright, so this question is very, very important, not only from the matching point of view, match the following point of view. You should be very thorough about all the individual laws that are given here, and also all this theory proposed and the phenomenon that takes place in the soil, so that in this year's JRF you can solve any question that might come from here. However, the correct answer of this question will be option 3. And the question is, the organic certificate of an organic farm is valid for. Another question from organic farming. I told you that organic farming is very, very important because we might have encountered at least 7 to 8 questions. So this question you have no concept or nothing that you can apply. You just have to know the answer, and the correct answer for this is 1 year. That is option 1. So let's move on to the next question. This question is another very easy question from pedology. As you can see, it is from the soil farming processes. So it says laterization involves the following. Laterization involves the following. Here you have to very carefully read the options, as there might be multiple correct options in the answer and you have to check for each and every one of it. All right. So let's read the first statement. Removal of Fe and Al complexed with humus from upper to lower horizon. Removal of Fe and Al is not lateralization, it is podzolization. All right. So this is not at all possible. Removal of silica from soil. This is correct, but we have to check all the options because there might be more than one correct, and we cannot rush on to the conclusion just by seeing one or two options, which I am trying to tell you repeatedly that you must check all the options, read thoroughly all the options more than twice to be absolutely sure of what you are marking. All right. So this one is true. That's no doubt. Option 3 is removal of silica and accumulation of sesquic oxides in soil. This is also true. Accumulation of sesquic oxide in soil is true. So option 3 is basically option 2 plus 4. So here the correct answer will be option the or else I should say the most appropriate answer will be option 3. All right. Even though option 2 and option 4 are correct, you will not get the marks if you mark option 2 or 4 because the most appropriate answer in this case is option 3. So in case of questions like this type, you have to mark the most appropriate option and that is removal of silica and accumulation of sesquic oxide both in soil. Alright, so option 3 is the correct option. Let's move on. Alright, another match the following question from mineral nutrition. Here you can see the elements in the left hand side column with their functions in the right hand side column. So even if you don't know all the elements or if you cannot remember perfectly each and every element and their function, there is nothing to worry about. Since this is a match the following question, you can make out the answer from say 2 or 3 options. So let's see if we can do it in the same way. So first we will match molybdenum because it is the most easily known nutrient, most easily found nutrient in all types of questions. So molybdenum will go with nitrogen metabolism because we know molybdenum is a component of nitrogenase enzyme that is absolutely necessary for nitrogen fixation and nitrogen metabolism. So molybdenum plays a role in nitrogen metabolism. So E is 4. Oh, all right. We already get our answer. But still, you should not follow this method. You should check other options as well. So if E is 4, then D is 5. Manganese causes intravenous chlorosis. All right. Splitting of water is done by chloride. So zinc will go for little leaf disease and sodium will go for regeneration of PEP, phosphoenol pyruvate. All right. So this was an easy question. This was an easy question. You have to be just a little bit careful and you can easily get this answer correct. So not a tough one, but you have to be very thorough about the function of all these nutrient elements and you should definitely study it. You should definitely read it more than once and you should be very thorough about all the functions of all these elements. So here the correct answer will be option 2. Option 2 is the correct answer. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Parent material transported by wind. This is again a question from pedology, and I think this is probably the 13th or 14th question from pedology. And again, I will repeat the same statement. Pedology is a bit difficult to grasp, and you have to read it thoroughly, and you have to read it multiple number of times. You have to revise again and again for gaining a good grip on the subject. So parent material transported by wind is called. This question was subject to heavy controversy and like Aeolian and Loess, the people were arguing that both of these are correct answer and you should get marks for both, but actually the answer will be Aeolian. Option 1 will be the correct option. I can show you in the official answer key as well. You can see that 30079 has got only one answer and that is 1. All right. So Aeolian is the correct answer. This might be because Loess is mostly called the material that is transported by wind, which is silty or clayey in texture, like um, material that are having less diameter, whereas aeolian is mainly designated for parent materials that are blown by the winds, which are of higher diameter, say in the sand fraction of the soil. So since it is saying parent material transported by wind, I think the more appropriate here is aeolian. Although Loess is correct, but aeolian is the more correct, more appropriate answer. So we will go with aeolian. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Here they have asked, this question is from agricultural chemicals, and you have to be very thorough about chemicals. I have already told you previously in previous parts of this video that from chemicals a huge chunk of questions usually, and you have to be very thorough about it. You may read any standard note from any university, any reputed university, and also you can make your own notes by reading some standard books of agricultural chemicals like Objective Agricultural Chemicals. And here they have asked the correct sequence, and the correct answer of this is option 1. In chemicals, mostly you don't need any concept or conceptual understanding. You have to know the fact. If you know, then only you can answer, or else like the scope of applying concept or analytical thinking is a bit less. However, in this question, you can see you can still apply some context, because chrysanthemum, it is a flower from where that pyrethrins are derived. Those are like natural origin insecticides, organic origin insecticides. So this is the raw material. From here pyrethrins are obtained, which are used as insecticide. Uh, Here also you can see from streptomyces they make out streptomycin, which is mostly an antibiotic and not a nematicide. So this is wrong, and the other two also have some wrong. I am not entirely sure of it. So anyhow, the correct answer here is option 1, because we know that pyrethrins are derived from chrysanthemum plants and they are widely used as insecticide, which has a very good effect on a wide range of insects, and they mostly work pretty quick and pretty good. So chrysanthemum is a widely used plant used in insecticides. So let's move on to the next question. This question is very nice one and a bit difficult also, but not a problem. Any question from classical soil science, soil chemistry, that is never difficult if you have your concept clear. So assertion reason question, where they have given the assertion that waterlogged soil typically displays a grayish color due to reduced oxygen levels. This is true, because you must have read that in waterlogged soils the glaciation takes place where the soil color becomes bluish or grayish or greenish. So displays a typical grayish color, that is correct, due to reduced oxygen levels, that is also correct. All right. So option 4 is out of the question. Now let's read the second statement. Here they have said upland soils usually maintain a reddish or brownish hue due to its well aerated nature. Now this statement is not entirely correct, because usually maintains a reddish or brownish hue upland soil. We cannot say that for sure. Like, say in case of podzolization, that soil is also upland soil. As you know, it is found in cold and humid, mostly temperate climatic regions. So podzol soils does not maintain a reddish or brownish color, and also although it is well aerated, there is no sign of water logging or anything. Still, it has an ash-like color. Podzol comes from the Russian zola, meaning ash-like. So it has a grayish texture. And also, if you see other soil forming processes, say in the arid or semi-arid regions, the calcification process takes place. That calcification process results in deposition or precipitation of calcium carbonate, which is whitish in color. So this reddish or brownish hue comes from iron oxide or aluminium oxide. That might be due to the well aerated nature, yes, because ferric oxide occurs in well aerated condition, in oxidized condition, and Fe3 plus has a characteristic red color. That is true. But upland soils usually maintain a reddish or brownish hue. Overall, this statement is wrong, because upland soils can maintain whitish hue, it can maintain ash-like hue, it can maintain different kinds of color depending on the parent material, depending on the soil forming process, the pedogenic process that is active over the parent materials for making that soil. So this statement 2 is going to be wrong, whereas statement 1 is correct. So the correct answer will be option 3. A is correct, and R, the statement as a whole, is not correct. All right. So this question is a peculiar and like one of the good questions from classical soil chemistry, submerged soil chemistry. So the answer will be option 3. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Another assertion reasoning, and this question is again from soil physics, that too again from soil water. All right, I think this is the fifth or sixth question from soil water. You can see in a single examination they are asking 6 to 7 questions only from soil water, so you can understand the importance of that chapter, right? So let's read the assertion statement. Equilibrium water content in a soil at a certain metric potential is higher when the soil is under the drying process compared to when the soil is under the wetting process. This is an absolutely correct statement, because I think you all know this phenomenon is called hysteresis, because the equilibrium water content in drying process is more than the equilibrium water content in the wetting process. This difference in water content, which occurs due to the direction of the process, like whether the soil is experiencing drying condition or wetting condition, that results in this change in the water content, and this is called hysteresis. So this statement is absolutely correct, that equilibrium water content in soil at a certain metric potential is higher when the soil is under the drying process compared to when the soil is under the wetting process. I think you all remember the graph where this is the metric suction in the y-axis, and this is, I cannot write the psi. Yeah, now I can write. And in the x-axis, you can see the volumetric water content, the theta. And I think you all remember the graph very well. The graph is like this, where this one is the wetting graph, whereas the right side one is the drying curve. All right. So let us take a particular metric suction. Say we choose this point and we draw a straight line. So you can see in this particular metric suction, the volumetric water content in the wetting curve is lesser than the volumetric water content in the drying curve. This much water content is more in case of the drying curve than in the wetting curve. So this statement is absolutely correct, and this statement is the definition, you can say, the definition of hysteresis. No, this statement is not the definition of hysteresis. This statement is correct because of the process of hysteresis. All right. Now let's see the reason for it. The contact angle between water and the soil solid phase is greater during the imbibition, that is wetting. Imbibition means wetting, like during the absorption of water in the soil, that is the wetting. So contact angle between water and soil solid phase is greater during the wetting of water than during drainage. Drainage means drying. This statement is also absolutely true. I think you remember the four reasons, four causes for hysteresis. Number one is the ink bottle effect. Number two is the entrapped air in the soil. And number three is the difference in contact angle between the advancing and the receding meniscus, where the contact angle during the imbibition or the advancing meniscus is more than the contact angle during the receding or the drainage meniscus. And finally, number four is swelling and shrinkage behavior of clay, that also results in differential equilibrium water content during drying and during wetting. So this is one of the reasons. There are four reasons, and this is one of the reasons why the hysteresis effect is seen and the first statement is justified. So the second statement correctly justifies the first statement. So the answer will be option 1. Both A and R are absolutely correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. This is one of the reasons. There are total four reasons for this statement. Why equilibrium water content at a certain metric potential is higher in the drying phase rather than in the wetting phase, and the second statement is one of the main reasons for it. So option 1 becomes the correct answer. All right, moving on. Here is an question from match the following, and this is also a easy one. You can see this is mainly from physiology if you are being specific, but we can put it as a general agriculture question as well. So we will try to match the options that are already known, and we will see if we can find the answer. All right, so here as far as I can see, the first matching is the easy one: fatty acid synthesis to smooth endoplasmic reticulum. All right, so B1, oh, we already get our answer. B1, there is only one option, and that will be the correct option. The correct answer is option C. Alright, fatty acid synthesis is done by smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Dark acidification, I think you all know this. Dark acidification takes place in the CAM plants, that is the crustacean acid metabolisms, where due to the water saving strategies, they does the acidification or they does the fixation process at night in dark in the absence of light, so that transpiration is reduced from the plants. And Hill reaction, I think you all know Hill reaction is the splitting of water during the time of photosynthesis and the release of oxygen. The oxygen that is released by the plants during photosynthesis comes from the water, and the splitting of water, I think you already know this. So C becomes 4 and Rubisco is required for photorespiration. D becomes 5 and Kelvin cycle is having regeneration of RUBP. If you remember the Kelvin cycle, the RUBP, that is the ribulose bisphosphate, that RUBP needs to be regenerated for every turn of Kelvin cycle. All right. So these are the basic physiology questions, plant physiology, and you should be having a basic knowledge for attempting this kind of questions. You can read few lines from any general agriculture book about all these that are listed in the list one, because there might be a question, you never know, that might come in this year's JRF from any of these 5 options. So it would be better if you have a clear understanding of the basics. And let's move on to the next question. The correct answer is option 3 for this one. Let's move on. Another assertion reasoning question, but this one looks very simple and easy, and it is from agronomy, general agriculture, we can say. So the assertion is organic mulch conserves soil moisture. That is absolutely true. There is no doubt about it. And secondly, why organic mulch conserves soil moisture? Because organic mulches cut off solar radiation falling on the soil surface and reduce evaporation. This is also absolutely true. Both are true, and this correctly explains the assertion. So the answer will be option 1. There is no doubt about it. Option 1 is the correct answer. All right. So from here you can read the associated points, associated topics like types of mulches, which mulch is used in which soil, like vertical mulch is used in black soil, and all these questions you can go through. Those are having a chance to come in next year's JRF. So moving on, the PF range of soft or friable consistency of soil is, I think you all know the answer. This is again from soil water. This might be the 8th question. And the PF range is, PF is nothing but the measure of soil moisture content. You must know it, and it was given by the scientist Schofield. That is also a very important question, and it might come in exams anytime. And do not get confused with pH scale. pH was given by Sorensen. That is also an important one. pH was given by Sorensen, whereas pF scale was given by Schofield. The Schofield who gave the ratio law, as you know. Soil science students must know that. And what is the pF scale? pF scale is a measure of soil moisture content, soil water present in soil. And the range for soft or friable consistency will be 2.8 to 4.5, because I think you know that 2.8 is the pF value for field capacity, whereas 4.5 is the pF value for permanent wilting point. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. 4.5 is hygroscopic coefficient. All right. 4.2 is permanent wilting point. So the friable or soft consistency, this chart is given in the soil treatise book, and also it will be seen in ISSS or any other standard textbook. So you should remember that which range determines which soil consistency. This is a very important portion from soil physics. And here, less than 0.5 means there is too much water content in the soil, and less than 0.5 is having sticky consistency. All right, sticky. And less than 0 or near about 0 means viscous. When the soil starts to flow under pressure, because it contains so much water, it becomes almost liquid. So that is viscous. Less than 0.5 means sticky consistency. 0.5 to 2.8 is plastic consistency. I think you know what is plastic. Plastic means the ability of the soil to retain a deformed shape, which was initially deformed by applying an external force, but the soil still retains that deformed shape once the force is removed. Even after the force has been removed, the soil still retains the deformation. That is called plasticity. This property is called plasticity, and this can only be seen in soil which contains more than 15% of clay. All right, because clay only exhibits that plastic behavior. So this 0.5 to 2.8 is the plastic consistency, and more than 4.5 means it contains very less amount of water, like no water almost you can say, and that is the hard or harsh, hard, harsh, or the yes, the hard or harsh consistency. So 2.8 to 4.5 is the soft or friable consistency, which is the most important soil consistency or the soil moisture content. That is the most important from agricultural point of view, because in friable or soft consistency only you should perform all the tillage operations, and it is the most ideal for growing of crops, because any water more than this will be not available to plants, because you know that is gravitational water and that is lost into the groundwater. Plants cannot use it, and any water less than this range will be not available to the plants, because it will be so highly, it will have such a high tension or suction in the soil, and soil like plant roots will be unable to extract that water from the soil. All right, so this option 2 is the correct answer, and this is the range of soft or friable consistency of soil. All right, let's move on to the next question, another assertion reasoning question, and this one is very easy. This is from soil temperature, as you can see from soil physics. So assertion is drainage increases the soil temperature. That is absolutely true. You know that if you drain a soil, the temperature of that soil rises, and the reason for this is drainage decreases the heat capacity. This is also absolutely true, because we know soil is having heat capacity that is lesser than the heat capacity of water. Water is having the highest heat capacity of any known liquids in that range. Also, it has an appreciable amount of higher heat capacity than the soil. So, while water is present in the soil, it will naturally have a higher heat capacity, and as a result, the soil temperature will be less, because for substances having higher heat capacity, you need to supply more amount of heat for raising the temperature of that substance. Whereas for substances with low heat capacity, you don't need to apply that much of a temperature. All right, you can supply lesser temperature, you can supply lesser amount of heat, and the rise in the temperature will be more. So once the water is drained from the soil, the overall specific heat of the soil water complex or the soil complex decreases, because water has gone out. Water was having higher specific heat, so since water has gone out, the overall specific heat of the system decreases. As a result, specific heat or the specific heat capacity decreases. As a result, the soil temperature will be increased. So this is the correctly explained answer, and both A and R are correct, with R being the correct explanation of A. All right. So let's move on to the next question. This question is again from organic farming. I think this is the seventh question from organic farming. So you have to be very careful, and let's read the question. Nutrient supply in organic farming is based on feeding the soil, not feeding the crop. Justify. All right, that's a good one. Based on feeding the soil, not feeding the crop. Let's read the statements. In organic management, nutrient sources are mostly on naturally occurred, not off farm external inputs. The statement is correct, but it does not explain the question, that the statement that has been given in the question. Why does it matter whether it is from on farm or off farm? We have to feed the soil, not feed the crop. Justify the statement that has been given in the question. So I think we have already got our answer, but still we'll read the other statements. Soil fertility is maintained by variety of means like crop rotation, organic mulching, cover crop. Yeah, that's true. And this kind of justifies the feeding the soil, not feeding the crop, because cover crop rotation, organic mulching, this has no effect on the crop directly, but all these practices improves the soil structure. It improves the fertility and productivity of the soil. So this is a correct one. Recycling and reuse of products and byproducts of different components of an organic farm, that also improves the soil's properties. And finally, nutrient enrichment of soil by encouraging natural cycles and soil biological activity. With a healthy soil, a soil with a good health, having a good microbial population, it will of course enhance the enrichment of soil by natural cycles and biological activity. So B, C, D are correct answer, and option 3 will be the correct answer. All right, let's move on to the next question. Another assertion reasoning type of question from agroforestry. from agronomy, you can say. So, implementing agroforestry practices helps in soil conservation. Perfect. This statement cannot be doubted at all. Agroforestry combines the cultivation of trees and crops on the same land. Correct. Which reduces soil erosion. Correct. By providing ground cover. Correct. And enhancing soil structure through the roots of the trees. Correct. So both the statements are absolutely correct, and it correctly explains that why implementing agroforestry practices helps in soil conservation. So there is no single doubt about this question, and option 1 will be the correct answer. I think this question was really easy, and just by reading the statement you will get to know this is a perfectly answered question, and option 1 is the correct answer. Let's go on to the next question. Which covalent bond is present in nucleic acid? Another question from biomolecule, as you can see. And this question you must know. There is no concept or anything, so you should know. Peptide bond is present between amino acids in a protein, right? Glycosidic bond is present between monosaccharides in a carbohydrate, right? Or sugar, we can say. And thymine bond, I am not sure where it is found. So, phosphodiester bond is found in the nucleic acids, where one or more nucleic acids, where one or more nitrogen bases and deoxyribose sugars, they are all bonded together by phosphodiester bond, because if you can see the structure of the nitrogen base present, say adenine, guanine, and all those, you will see the presence of phosphorus, and this group PO, this kind of bond is present everywhere, and there is a phosphodiester bond where phosphorus has this. I'm sorry. All right. So nucleic acids have phosphodiester bonds. All right, so option B will be the correct answer. Option 2. All right, let's move on to the next question. Original design of tensiometer was first proposed by. This question also has got no concept. You should know the answer, only then you can answer it. So the correct answer of this is option 3, B.E. Livingstone. We can eliminate Henry Darcy was not involved with tensiometer. Richard and Gardner, they gave the concept of the tensiometer. They figured out the working principle of the tensiometer, but the first original tensiometer design was proposed by Livingstone. So even if you didn't know this in the exam, you could have used your common sense, and like, since Gardner and Richards are given in different options, so these two will not be like, either they would be given together to be the correct answer or not. So these two will be eliminated. Darcy is eliminated. So Livingstone will be the correct answer. Option 3 is the correct answer here. Anyhow, you should read it. You should read properly the instrumentation section, and tensiometer is actually really very important. So moving on to the next question. This question is very, very famous previous year question. This has been asked, I think, twice or thrice in the previous 3 years. Like every year, you will find this question in 2021, in 2023, and now again in 2024. We have to arrange these irrigation methods in the increasing order of water use efficiency. So the lowest efficiency, of course, is the surface irrigation, because there you are just doing surface flooding. Huge amount of water is wasted, and the efficiency is really low, because efficiency, I think, is nothing but output by input. So here the input is really, really large, and a lot of input is wasted due to having leaching losses, evaporation, and other seepage losses, and the output is actually really less compared to the input that has been applied. Like, the input is so high, the output does not matter, and the high denominator value makes it very less, the efficiency the lowest. So surface irrigation will be the first one. Increasing order means from small to large. So it will be C in the first, and we can already see our answer. Option 4 is the correct answer, but still we'll see. After surface irrigation, it will be sprinkler, because in sprinkler also there is some chance of wastage, because a lot of water is sprayed around everywhere. Then it will come drip irrigation, which is very sophisticated and modified form of irrigation method, where the drip is applied only near the plant root zone, but it has the disadvantage of limiting the root growth. However, pitcher pot irrigation is having the highest efficiency,
but this is not conventional for field crops. Like you just cannot expect to water the whole 1 hectare field by your own hand. Pitcher pot irrigation is not feasible in the field level. So, but still it has the highest water use efficiency because the input of water is so less, uh, the value of the efficiency increases. All right, so option 4 will be the correct answer. This is a very easy question and it has been asked thrice in the previous 3 years. So you should know this question anyhow. So let's move on to the next question. Elements associated with nitrogenous enzyme in biological nitrogen fixation, BNF. In BNF, elements associated with nitrogenous enzyme. Molybdenum is perfectly correct answer. So whichever option does not have A, we will cut it off. All right. Then iron. Iron is also perfectly correct because we know there are two components of the nitrogenous enzyme. One contains MOFE protein and one contains only Fe protein. So the major components of the nitrogenous enzyme are molybdenum, iron, and sulfur, MO, Fe, and S protein complex. So one component is called the dinitrogen reductase, and the other component is called dinitrogenase. All right. So you can study the nitrogenous enzyme structure carefully, and you can see so molybdenum and iron is absolutely necessary. Copper is not a part of the nitrogenous enzyme and nickel is not at all a part of the nitrogenous enzyme. So we'll cut off everything with the option D on it and A and B only will be the correct answer. So nitrogenous enzyme contains both molybdenum and iron. Alright, so option 2 will be the correct option. Let's move on. This is a question from extension. As you can see, mass media channels are relatively more important than interpersonal channels for this question. Also, you need to know to answer it. There is no concept, nothing that can be applied here. So the answer will be early majority. For early majority, mass media channels are relatively more important than interpersonal channels. And you can read this question from any standard extension note or any book of extension. Let's move on. So weed not found in rice crop. This is also a general agriculture question. This is a very easy one. That is Chenopodium album. I think you all know this is a general agriculture question. Chenopodium album is generally found in wheat crop and not in the rice crop. And all the other Echinoclea, Cyperus, and Eleusin indica. This is wild ragi. These are highly available or highly found in the rice ecology. So the answer of this question will be Chenopodium album, Bathua. All right, it's called Bathua. Moving on. So given below are two statements, we have to do the assertion reasoning. All right. Organic farming promotes environmental sustainability. Perfectly correct statement. And why it does so? Because organic farming avoids the use of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, which help preserve soil health, conserve water resources, and reduce pollution of air and water bodies. This is a perfectly correct statement, and this statement is the correct explanation of the first statement. So the option will be the correct answer will be option 1. All right. This is probably the 10th question from organic farming section, and you must know the importance of it. So moving on to the next question, Bray's number 1 reagent. I think I have already talked about this previously in this video when we were doing that match the following, where they have asked the instrumentation or the extractant, and in the other column they have asked the element that is being like the instrument that is used for quantification of which element. There I told you Bray's number 1 is used for estimation of available phosphorus in acidic soils, in soils having pH acidic. All right, acidic to near neutral. And here you can see that the first two options, these two are the Olsen reagent, all right, which is also used for extraction of available phosphorus, estimation of available phosphorus, but it is used in alkaline soils, all right, not in the soils with pH less than 7. So first two options will not be there, and here in option 3 and 4 you have to remember that Bray's number 1 reagent is option 4 is the correct answer, where both are normal. 0.03 normal NH4F and 0.025 normal HCl. This is the standardized representation of Bray's number 1 reagent. You might argue that option 3 is also correct because molarity and normality will be same for NH4F, as the N factor of NH4F ammonium fluoride is 1. So molarity value and normality value is same for it, but the standardized expression of Bray's number 1 reagent is option 4. So even though option 3 is correct, I think the more appropriate option is option 4. The more correct is option 4, and you should go for option 4 and not go for any controversy, because it is 0.03 normal NH4F and 0.025 normal HCl. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Here you can see that single superphosphate, double superphosphate, triple superphosphate, all are monocalcium phosphate. True. If you read the fertilizer production part, you will see that rock phosphate or apatite, mostly fluorapatite, which the formula of fluorapatite is Ca10PO4 whole 6 and F2. This is the formula of fluorapatite, which is found in the phosphate rock. This, when reacts with H2SO4 or H3PO4, it forms single superphosphate, double superphosphate, and triple superphosphate. Mostly, double superphosphate is not used that much. Single and triple are used. Triple is a high analysis fertilizer containing almost 46% P2O5, whereas single superphosphate is a low analysis fertilizer containing only 16% P2O5. Whereas, however, both these fertilizers, all the three fertilizers contain phosphorus in the monocalcium phosphate form, okay, which is soluble in water. But it has got some percentage. Like in case of TSP, the water soluble phosphate percentage is low, whereas for single superphosphate, the water soluble phosphate percentage is very high. But the monocalcium phosphate, this compound is soluble in water. However, they have not asked it in the first statement. In the first statement, they have asked that single superphosphate, double superphosphate, and triple superphosphate are monocalcium phosphate. This is true. This is a true statement. All right. The second statement is monocalcium phosphates are water soluble. Until this statement is correct, but thus have high leaching losses. This statement is not. This portion is not correct. This is wrong. Phosphorus can never have high leaching losses because phosphorus is highly immobile in soil. It gets readily absorbed into the soil colloids by of ligand exchange, or it gets readily precipitated as calcium or aluminum or iron phosphate depending on the pH of the soil. So leaching loss of phosphorus is never possible. There is no high leaching loss of phosphorus. That is never possible. How much ever soluble monocalcium phosphate is, leaching losses is not taking place at any point. So statement 2 is wrong. Statement 2 is false. So the correct answer to this question will be option 3, which means statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. All right, let's move on to the next question. We are almost at the end of the recap. We are reaching the 120th question, as you can see. So this question also had a huge controversy as far as I remember. The most dominant exchangeable cation in the Earth's crust. Um, the answer given is aluminium, and aluminium, according to me, also aluminium will be the correct answer, not calcium, because we know the percentage of the elements in the Earth crust. The top is oxygen, then comes then comes silicon, right? Then comes aluminium, then comes ferrous, then comes calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium. All right, it is in this. It is in this format. So, of course, aluminium is more than calcium. There is no doubt about it, right? Aluminium is more than calcium in the earth crust. That is, there is no doubt about it. The controversy arose due to the exchangeable word. But we cannot say, right, that how can we say that aluminium is not exchangeable? We know that aluminium is one of the dominant ions that is present in the soil exchange complex, that is present in the clay colloid. Aluminium is one of the most dominant ions, and that is readily exchanged also in the AlC plus form or in different forms in which aluminium is present, say in this form AlOH 2 plus or AlOH 2 plus this one. All these forms are adsorbed in the soil clay colloid complex, in the soil exchange complex, and they can be exchanged. Say if you provide a huge source of calcium, huge source of ammonium acetate or anything into the soil, these ions of course will get exchanged from the soil clay colloid complex, from the soil exchangeable complex. So aluminium, we cannot say aluminium is not exchangeable. Aluminium is of course an exchangeable ion. So I don't know. The answer for me correct is option 1, and NTA also had given the same answer in the answer key. So the most dominant exchangeable cation in the Earth's crust is aluminium. So option 1 will be the correct answer. All right, not option 2. Option 1 is the correct answer. Right. Let's move on to the next question. Here you can see a question from remote sensing. They have asked to match the following, where in list 1 they have listed the events and in list 2 they have given the functions. So let's dive right into it. Uh, we'll try with the easy ones. Normalized difference vegetation index, we know that is used for identifying crop types and crop health. So C2, let's see. Yes, we have got our C2 and option 3 is the correct answer. All right. Still, we'll check the other ones. Thermal imaging is used for monitoring crop water stress and irrigation management. Yeah, exactly, because the moisture content in the soil will differentiate the heat capacity of soil in different areas. Where if there is large content of soil water, there is more soil water, more soil moisture content. That place the heat will be less, whereas soil areas having lesser moisture will have higher heat or higher thermal temperature. So thermal imaging does the imaging by differentiating the temperature of the body or of the thing of which it is taking the image. So it can be used for monitoring crop water stress and irrigation management. That is true. Then radar remote sensing is mapping soil moisture content and terrain elevation. Yeah, it can be done. And multispectral imaging can be used for detecting temperature variations in crops for stress detection. All right. Still, let's check the answer. 30022 is option 3. Yeah, option 3 is the correct option. Right. All right. Let's move on to the question. Soil hydraulic head is expressed by. This is again another question from soil water. I think the number has crossed 10. And you can see how important soil water is. So soil hydraulic head is the H, if you remember, MGH. This H is the soil hydraulic head. So let's try all this and see which one is what. So option 1 they say potential energy per unit mass of soil water. So it will be MGH by M. So GH overall is not hydraulic head. We need only H. So option A is wrong. So wherever there is A in the option, we will cut it. And if we cut that, we can already get our right answer. That is C only. Still, we will check. For B statement, potential energy per unit volume of soil water. How can we write the volume? The volume will be mass into, I'm sorry. Density is equal to mass by volume. So volume is equal to mass by density. All right. So mass by density means m by rho. This m and m will get cancelled and it will be rho into g into h. This is not the hydraulic head. So this is also gone. C is potential energy per unit weight of soil water. We know the formula of weight is m into g, mass into gravitational acceleration. Mass into acceleration is weight, force. So mg gets cancelled and H is the hydraulic head. So option C is the correct one. And for D, height of standing water on the soil surface, that is not the hydraulic head. So this is also not done. So C only, option 4 will be the correct option for this question. All right, let's move on. A stem nodulating plant. This is a classic question from soil biology. If you remember, in soil biology, from whichever book you read, this answer will surely be there. Uh, in the root nodule section, there they will put one exception column and they will say this, that Sesbania rostrata is the only plant that has stem nodulation, and the nodules in this stem that can also harbor nitrogen fixing microorganisms, and it can also fix nitrogen from the stem. All the other plants are root nodulating, whereas Sesbania rostrata is stem nodulating. You should know this answer. It is not option 1, it is option 2. All right. Option 2 is the correct answer. Sesbania rostrata. You should remember this. All right. You can see the scientific name of the other plants in the other options also, and you should be very thorough of which can fix nitrogen, which cannot, which can be used as green manuring, which can be used as biofuel, and so on. So let's move on to the next question. Another true false type question from soil mineralogy and chemistry. So 2 is to 1 layer silicates consist of 2 tetrahedral sheets bound to either side of an octahedral sheet. True. This is a correct statement. 2 tetrahedral sheets of 2 is to 1 layer silicate is bound to one side of octahedral sheet. No, this is wrong. One side, it is not connected to only one side. It is connected in two sides. If we draw it very simply, say if this is the octahedral sheet, then for 2 is to 1 mineral, we know this is one tetrahedral sheet and this is another tetrahedral sheet. So it is connected on either side of the octahedral sheet and not on only one side. So statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. So option 3 will be correct answer. All right. From here, you should read the structure of all the 1:1 and 2:1 layer silicates and the minerals, and you should be very thorough about it. Let's move on. We are almost on the verge of completion. Question number 118. It says saturated hydraulic conductivity in situ is measured by another question from soil water, and the answer of this is Guelph permeameter. I think this is a well-known question to all. Neutron probe, it is used for measuring soil moisture content in situ. It can measure how much moisture is present in the soil, and it cannot measure the hydraulic conductivity. So neutron probe is not there. And piezometer is used for maintaining the water depth, the table, and infiltrometer is also measured for infiltration capacity, infiltrability of the soil, and saturated hydraulic conductivity is mainly measured by Guelph permeameter. Also, we can measure saturated hydraulic conductivity using double ring infiltrometer, DRI. Double ring infiltrometer can also be used for measuring saturated hydraulic conductivity. It can also be used for measuring basic infiltration rate and the rate of infiltration of water into the soil. All right. So coming to the penultimate question, another question from soil water. I think we have almost reached the 15. We have crossed the 15 mark. So I think you can understand the importance of soil water, and from today only you should start revising it and reading it again and again. So the PF curve is same as I told. The PF curve was given by none other than Schofield. The concept of PF was given by him, and the PF curve is nothing but it is a soil water content and metric potential relation. How much metric suction is there and how much water content is there. The other options are not feasible, so we can get the answer of this by simple elimination method as well. Soil pH, it is not related to soil pH at all. It is not related to temperature. It is not related to density. So all these three options are incorrect, whereas option 4 is the correct option. All right. So coming to the last question of this session, again another question from organic farming and natural farming. I think for this also we have crossed the 10th mark very early, like way back. So the answer to this question, this is also a kind of general agriculture question. If you know this answer, you can, and there is no concept or anything that you can apply. So natural farming is associated with, I think we all know the answer. This is an easy one. That is Masanobu Fukuoka. All right. Option 4 is the correct option. All right. So we are done with the ICAR JRF 2024. If you have any comments, any question, any doubt, anything, you can always ask in the comment section, and you can always contact me. Feel free to do that, and I will see you in the next video with another recap. So till then, goodbye.